morning. I'd like to call this meeting to order. The time is 9:01, and today is Wednesday, December 7th, 2022. This is the first day of a two-day meeting of the Physical Therapy Board of California. Today, we're meeting at the hearing room at the Department of Consumer Affairs building located at 2005 Evergreen Street in Sacramento, California. This is an official business meeting of the Physical Therapy Board. The board's role remains to maintain consumer protection and consult with local and state entities on the laws and regulations pertaining to the physical therapy industry. We will take public comment on specific agenda items, and at both the beginning and end of the meeting, there will be comment session for items not on the agenda. Public comments must be specific to the agenda item that's being discussed. If you're making a comment during a specific agenda item that's not related to that topic, you will be directed to hold your comments until we reach the appropriate agenda item. All comments that do not directly relate to an item on the agenda should be held until the agenda item for items not on the agenda. The board follows the Open Meeting Act, so while we accept and appreciate the public's comments, we cannot respond to those comments. This meeting is being recorded and minutes of the meeting will be prepared. Can we please have roll call?
Alicia Rubina Emen.
Here.
Tanya McMillan.
Here.
Dale Armstrong.
Here.
Jesus Dominguez.
Present.
Dale Drummer.
Present.
Katarina Ellaby.
Present.
Jonathan Irving.
Here.
All members are present. The board has a quorum.
Thank you. And agenda item number 3, can we please have Dr. Jesus Dominguez read the board's mission statement?
My pleasure, Madam President. The mission of the Physical Therapy Board of California is to advance and protect the interests of the people of California by the effective administration of the Physical Therapy Practice Act.
Thank you. And with that, we'll move straight into agenda item number 4, which is our petition for reinstatement of license.
All right, good morning. Miss Emery Jones, yes? All right. In just a moment here, I'm going to announce your case, and I'll have both you and Mr. Gatchett provide your names for the record. Then I will briefly go over how the hearing is going to proceed this morning, all right?
Okay.
Do you have the petition documents this morning?
No, the binder.
I spoke with Ms. Jones. She received it, but she didn't bring it today.
All right. Is there a way that you can sit together so she can review those?
I will do my best.
Okay, thank you. All right. All right, good morning. We are here on December 2nd, 2022, in the matter of the petition for reinstatement of Jolene Dell Emery Jones. This matter is being heard before the Physical Therapy Board of California, Department of Consumer Affairs, State of California. This is OAH case number 2022-110062. This is board number ID-2014-75796. We've already had all the board members identify themselves for the record, and there is a quorum present this morning. And I am Marcy Larson. I am an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings presiding over the matter this morning. We are here at the date, time, and location of the notice of hearing in this matter. And counsel for the people, if you would please state your appearance for the record.
Good morning, Your Honor, and honorable board members. John Gatchett, G-A-T-S-C-H-E-T, appearing on behalf of the Attorney General's office.
And Ms. Emery Jones, you're representing yourself this morning, is that correct?
I am.
All right, I'm just going to have you bring your microphone a little closer to you so we can make sure that we can hear you. Ms. Emery Jones, were you aware that you could have had counsel represent you at your own expense?
I'm sorry, what?
Were you aware that you could have had counsel represent you at your
I
own
did.
expense? All right, and you're choosing to proceed on your own behalf?
Yes, yes.
This matter was scheduled to be recorded by a court reporter. We did not have a court reporter available, so the matter is being audio recorded. Any objection to the recording, Mr. Gatchett?
No.
Any objection to the
No.
recording? All right. So I'm going to just go over a few ground rules and explain how the hearing is going to proceed this morning. We're here this morning, Ms. Emery Jones, because you filed a petition for reinstatement of your license, correct?
Correct.
All right. And so because you are seeking reinstatement of your license, you have the burden of proving that your license should in fact be reinstated. The board is primarily concerned about rehabilitation efforts you've undertaken since the revocation of your license. The Deputy Attorney General will proceed first, Mr. Gatchett. He will provide the board with a brief overview of the history of discipline of your license. He will also go through the petition package and identify those documents for the record. For the documents that he identifies, I will ask you if you've reviewed those documents and if you have any objection to any of the documents. If you have an objection, you just have to tell me you have an objection and as to which document, all right?
Okay,
And then I will make a decision on whether or not those documents will be admitted for the board's consideration. After Mr. Gatchett has provided an overview to the board and addressed all of the documents, I will then allow you to present your case. I will swear you in, and you will be under oath. You can provide the board members any testimony you want them to consider for purposes of issuing a decision in this matter. The board members, of course, have the benefit of your petition package and the documents you've submitted, so you don't need to specifically repeat anything that's in those documents. But if there are things you want to draw the board's attention to, just you can do so at that time. After you've presented your testimony, Mr. Gatchett will have an opportunity to ask you questions. You may object to any question that he asks of you. You just have to tell me if you have an objection to a question, all right?
okay,
After Mr. Gatchett is done questioning you, then I will ask our board members if they have any questions for you as well. And you can likewise object to any question that's asked of you. Just understand that there must be a legal basis for you not to answer a question, but if you have an objection to a question, just please let me know. And then I'll make a decision on whether or not you need to answer the question, all right?
okay,
Okay. After the board members are done asking you questions, I will allow you one more opportunity to add anything to your testimony that you wish. During this proceeding, I cannot give any legal advice, but if you or Mr. Gatchett have any questions about the proceedings, please ask me, and if I can answer the question, I will. After the matter has been submitted to the board for consideration, the board will go into closed session and deliberate. You will receive a written decision sometime in the future. All right?
okay.
All right. Any questions from me before we get started?
No,
All right. Mr. Gatchett?
No.
All right, Mr. Gatchett, if you would please give the board a brief overview and address the petition documents.
Yes. So the petitioner comes today having had her license revoked following a hearing, a contested hearing, and that occurred in 2018. The basis for the revocation at hearing was that she had failed Maximus. And so she was in Maximus and had a number of issues in Maximus in 2016 and 2017. Those facts are set forth in the decision and order, and that's in the jurisdictional documents. The reason she was on probation with the board was she had a DUI back in 2014, a .20 DUI. And those facts are at pages 127 and 128. So that's the petition that's coming forth, basically a situation where she was on probation for a DUI and then had failures at Maximus, and then the probation was terminated. Okay, so the documents we have in front of the board today are the petitioner's petition for reinstatement. That's Exhibit 1, pages 1 through 72. It includes the petition form, a narrative statement, letters of reference, and the letters of reference are from a Dr. Nakarmi, N-A-K-A-R-M-I, a Dr. Lynch, L-Y-N-C-H, both physical therapists, Alexis Sharrock, S-H-A-R-R-O-C-K, Dr. Chong, C-H-O-N-G, and then two patients, May and Jen Kaiser, K-I-S-E-R, as well as education course certificates. I'd ask those be marked for identification and moved into evidence.
All right, so counsel, my documents are not Bates numbered.
Oh,
Um,
in your binder?
I don't have, well, I downloaded mine. They were uploaded to OAH.
1 second.
Okay.
May we take a moment?
Of course.
Judge, if we can just have a moment, we have a hard copy for you with date stamping on it.
That would be helpful, thank
I know
you.
that we had a digital copy for the board members, so if you want to maybe just take a pause while we grab that and
That's fine.
go off the record.
All right. Oh, all right, we'll just go ahead and wait for that and.
Yeah, it has a helpful little title page for admitting it,
That would be helpful. It should just be a moment, yes?
I think, yes, I think the executive director is just getting the binder.
Okay. All right, we're just,
Still looking for those 3 copies.
all right, we're just off the record until we get those.
Your Honor, can I use the restroom? Is it-
I'll ask, we're on recess, that's fine. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Please. All right, we are back on the record, and during the break, we were able to get some copies of the exhibits, and Ms. Emery Jones, you now have a copy of all the petition documents as well. So as Mr. Gadget goes through the exhibits, I will ask you, as to each exhibit, he identifies whether or not you have any objections, so you'll be able to follow along, all right?
Okay.
All right, Mr. Gadget, if you would please continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Going back on the record here with these exhibits we had talked about previously, Exhibit 1 is the petition for reinstatement. I had described that exhibit, pages 1 through 72. I'd asked that that exhibit be marked and identified for the record, and we'd ask that that be moved into evidence.
All right, Ms. Emery Jones, any objections to the documents that make up Exhibit 1?
No.
Exhibit 1 is admitted.
All right, and then Exhibit 2, which is pages 73 to 130, is the jurisdictional documents in this case, includes the notice of hearing for today's hearing, certificate of non-licensure, and then the two decisions. One, the decision order I was describing to you, that was the .20 DUI, and the facts are AG 127 to 128. And then the decision in order revoking the respondent's license following hearing, following a petition to revoke probation based on failure to complete Maximus. Ask those be marked for identification and moved into evidence.
Any objection to the documents that make up Exhibit 2?
No.
Okay, just you have to make sure you wait for me to ask the question before you answer.
Okay.
We can't talk over each other. So no objection?
No objection.
All right, Exhibit 2 is admitted.
Exhibit 3 is the board's investigative report. It was compiled by Mr. Martin. It includes statements of the respondent as well as statements of interviews with other witnesses that were the letter writers. Asked that this be marked and moved into evidence.
Okay, any objection to Exhibit 3?
No.
Exhibit 3 is admitted.
And then finally, Exhibit 4 is a Breeze background check on the respondent, verifying that she has no criminal convictions or arrests since her license was revoked. Ask that be marked and for identification and moved into evidence.
Any objection to Exhibit 4?
No.
Exhibit 4 is admitted.
And that comprises the jurisdictional documents and the evidence in this case. I would turn it back now to the court for the next direction.
All right, Ms. Emery Jones, is now your opportunity to testify. The first thing I'm going to do is swear you in, so if you please stand. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please have a seat. And please state and spell your name.
Jolene Emery Jones, JOLLENEEMERY-JONES.
All right, Ms. Jones, as I explained earlier, now is your opportunity to provide any testimony you want the board members to consider concerning your petition for the reinstatement of your license.
Wow, okay, I would like to get my license reinstated, of course, to continue practicing. I thought I would be retiring now, but I've decided to wait a few more years. And I wanted an opportunity to broaden my, what I want to do with physical therapy. I don't know where to start. I do have someone coming in to speak on my behalf.
Is that witness here?
Not yet.
All right.
But they know he's coming, so. Right now, I'm just a pain management tech at a medical office. And I want to, get back into actual physical therapy. I've been working with AA for the past 4 years. Maximus, I know I had difficulty with. The hardest thing with Maximus was calling in every day, which is it sounds really ridiculous, but I don't know why that was so hard for me to remember. You know, I even posted notes and everything. I know I did test positive twice during that time. Once when my dad passed away, and then once when a very close, dear loved one passed away. That was a year apart. So I was, you know, following Maximus the best I could as far as what they wanted me to do. Apparently, I was reading through these documents at home, and I forgot about the out-of-range testing, and I wasn't quite sure. I remember, though, that they had me go see my doctor for any problems, you know, medical problems. And she failed to call whoever she was supposed to call, the best I can remember. So I don't really know what happened with the out-of-range testing. So I, you know, like I say, I just would like an opportunity to practice in either my skilled nursing facility that I was at, or maybe even do a little bit of traveling therapy until I retire. And that's all.
Right, I'm going to ask, allow Mr. Gatchett to ask you questions. Sometimes that will help you remember things, and as I mentioned, the board members may have some questions for you as well.
Okay.
And then if there's anything else you would like to add, I'll make sure you have an opportunity to do that.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Gatchett?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Emery Jones, you know, I've handled your case now for a number of years, so I'm going to be asking questions, kind of going back and forth regarding case status. The goal of my questioning is to kind of update. So, you know, your license was revoked in 2018. What's been going on since that time? So hopefully that'll kind of, you know, show you where my questions are coming from,
Got it.
okay? All right, what's your current AA meeting status?
3 to 5 times a week.
And when was your last meeting?
2 days ago.
And where was that meeting at?
In Grass Valley, at the, I don't know what street it's on.
And that's the location you go 3 to 5 times a week, or do you go to another
Yes.
location?
No, that's my main, yeah. I mean, I do go to different ones on occasion, but that's my main.
And Ms. Emery Jones, I want to remind you, it's very important that you let Mr. Gatchett finish his question before you answer it. And that way, you're not speaking over each other, and that way you also know what question you're answering. So you want to make sure you do that.
Now, you say you don't know the name of the street it's on. Is there a landmark it's near?
Yeah, it's near Taco Bell and Jack in the Box and Grass Valley Tire.
And you're saying you're going 3 to 5 times a week at that location predominantly. How long have you been going 3 to 5 times a week at that location, coming from now, going back?
4 years.
And what days of the week do you go?
Well, it varies. Usually Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday.
And what time is the meeting?
5 o'clock,
How long does it last for?
an hour.
Okay, we just had maybe your witness who's walked in, so I'm just going to have you sit in the audience until it's your turn to testify. Thank you. Mr. Gatchett, please continue.
What's your sobriety date?
January 7, 2018.
And that was your sobriety date when we had the hearing to revoke your license. In the time between that sobriety date and present, have you had any chance to get close to drinking?
Yes, I have.
Can you tell me about that? When was the closest you came to drinking in the last 4 years?
Well, intermittently, you know, you come across, you go by the alcohol section in the store and you think, oh, that sounds good. And then you say, oh, no, you know, I kind of just avoid that section if I can.
Yeah, all our grocery stores have alcohol sections in them, so it's
Yes.
something you have to confront.
Yes,
Have you ever tried to reach for a bottle of alcohol on the store?
no.
Do you ever go to bars?
No,
Any life stressors that almost brought you back to drinking in the last 4 years?
probably just getting through financially. You know, that's been probably a big thing. My car breaking down. Needing a new car.
Aside from you working, do you have any other sources of financial support?
No. I'm sorry. My son does live with me, so he pays, you know, shares with the cost of living.
Pays rent or?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in 2018, I know one of the questions that came up was that you were living with your son and your daughter, and they were still consuming alcohol, and they lived in the residence. Is your son still consuming alcohol in the residence?
He does usually, though, when he goes to a friend's house
Okay.
to watch football.
So your son consumes alcohol, but he doesn't consume it in your residence?
Yes, he does, but only in his room. And we've talked about that. My daughter's no longer living with us. She has had a daughter who I cherish.
All right, so congratulations on your granddaughter. I just want to ask more questions about the alcohol situation. Where does your son keep alcohol in the house?
In the refrigerator,
Okay, so in a common area in the house?
yes.
I know during the hearing on your revocation, we actually discussed, and I think you had testified that you would work to get alcohol out of the house, recognizing that at that time you were much closer to having some violations of your probation. What happened to that? Why didn't you work on getting the alcohol out of the house? Or do you even remember that?
No.
Okay.
I know I remember talking about, having some of my daughter's wine. David drinks beer, I don't like beer.
Okay. I'm going to take you to page 89 in your binder, if you can. It's on the bottom right-hand side in Exhibit 2. And Your Honor, if I may have sister?
Of course.
Great. I'm going to point to paragraph 16. In that, the judge noted in her decision, which became the decision in the case, and stated, both of her children drink alcohol and keep it in the home. Respondent has not asked them to remove it, but she plans to now. The ALJ wrote that because it was your testimony during testimony. Does that refresh your recollection as to
No.
making that statement?
No,
Okay. So you don't remember talking about that?
no.
All right. All right. Do you have a sponsor at AA?
I did, I had two, both of them have passed away. And I have a temporary sponsor.
Who's your temporary?
I'm still looking for a permanent sponsor.
Who's your temporary sponsor?
Nancy M.
And how long has she been your temporary sponsor?
For a few months now. My prior sponsor died in June.
And, well, I'm going to try to get honed down on that. When we had this hearing in 2018, Cynthia Weeks was your sponsor, and she testified. When did she pass away?
Oh, I don't remember the date. It was probably 5 months after the hearing. She died of complications of her liver.
And then you had a sponsor after Miss Weeks, and then you were saying that that person passed away as well?
Yes, of brain cancer.
Okay. Who is that person?
You know what, I just now, it's just, I'm spacing on her name, I'm sorry.
How long was she your sponsor?
2 years.
And you said that you last had her as a sponsor how long ago?
Until she passed in June.
So June of this year?
Correct.
So she was your sponsor approximately from June of 2020 through the pandemic till June of 2022?
Correct.
How often would you see her at meetings?
At least once a week.
So there's approximately 52 weeks.
Karen Hurley, that's her name.
Oops.
I knew it,
All right. What was her name again?
Karen Hurley.
Okay. I know that when we had this hearing before, Cynthia had stated that you had not really prioritized your sobriety until after your license was suspended, when Maximus terminated you from the program. What steps have you taken since your license was revoked to prioritize your sobriety?
Just, I think I was angry at myself and I just didn't want to allow the alcohol to control, so I just kept my head down and went to meetings.
All right, so Nancy M. is your temporary sponsor. When was the last time you talked to her?
2 days ago at the meeting.
How often do you see her at meetings?
One to two times a week.
How long have you been at your current residence where you're living? And I don't want the location or what it is, but just how long have you been there?
Oh man, 2 years.
Is that environment pretty stable?
Yes.
Okay. How much alcohol does your son keep in the residence?
Couple cans or 6-pack, maybe.
You said he drinks beer. I remember that your drink kind of was wine, wasn't that your?
Yes.
Okay. There's no wine in the house?
No.
All right, you were terminated from the outpatient program at Maximus before completion, and that's in the record. I'm just curious, have you completed an outpatient program in alcohol since that termination?
No.
Have you completed an inpatient program in alcohol addiction since the
No.
termination from Maximus?
Oops. No.
Okay. Not a problem. This is not, Ms. Marie Jones, this is not a normal function. When we're human condition, when we talk, we don't typically pause when the other person, so don't feel like you're doing anything wrong. Normal conversations, we interrupt each other, we talk over each other. Just this is like a court function, so it just kind of takes a little while. Thankfully, it's just being recorded, so we don't have a reporter we're driving mad, but it will make it hard to actually transcribe the recording if we're talking over each other. All right, my next question, since your termination from Access, have you lived in a sober living environment? Do you know what a sober living environment is?
No, I have not.
Okay. All right. During probation, and at that time you were still working, you were running into financial difficulties in paying for Maximus. I mean, you were delinquent in your fees. It wasn't a sole reason for why you were terminated, but it was one of the reasons. If your license is renewed and you're placed on probation, what is your plan on paying for services at Maximus?
I'm hoping to get some financial help from my current employer.
Your current employer is what? What kind of work do they do?
No, you can't ask anybody for help. This is your testimony. If you don't know, you just have to say so.
Nurse practitioner.
Okay. So you're working for,
With his doctorate.
okay, you're working for a nurse practitioner?
Well, I work in a medical clinic.
And is that like a pain clinic?
It's a general medical and pain clinic. Dr. Noble is the MD there.
Are there any physical therapists on staff?
No.
If you were retain your physical therapy license or were to receive it back from the board, would you continue working at that location or would you work somewhere else?
Possibly, yeah. I'm considering it. And then I can do physical therapy evaluations and do more more physical therapy activities.
Okay, so they would bring you on potentially as an alternative to opiate medication or injections as another treatment for chronic pain? Is that your understanding?
Correct.
Okay. You have not been a physical therapist for approximately 4 years. Working in a location like that without any other physical therapists, who would you go to for guidance in your field while working there? Especially if you need to be up to date on techniques or current practices.
Probably I would go to who I worked with before, Simone, and I can't think of his last name.
Okay. That's one of the letter writers?
Yes.
Okay. And that was a physical therapy clinic where you were, and I believe you were there through the end of 2020?
Yes.
All right, we're going to have some more questions on that. I was going to ask you, since October of 2018, have you seen a psychologist or therapist regarding your past alcoholism?
No.
Have you received any sort of therapy from a clinical practitioner?
No.
In your petition for reinstatement, I noticed a number of your continuing education credits. For the most part, your continuing education credits appeared to be up and through August of 2019. I did notice that there was one certificate for a certified personal trainer of November 2020, not a continuing education credit in physical therapy. Did you do any continuing education credits in physical therapy in 2020?
No.
Did you do any in 2021?
No.
Did you do any in this year, 2022?
No.
So it's been approximately 3 years since you did continuing education in physical therapy?
Yes, and I realize I'm behind on my continuing education. I didn't think I would get to this point. I thought I would retire, and I, just didn't do it.
Right.
Until I came until I decided to do this. And so I know I'm behind and I know I need to continue that process. I just wanted to get through this first.
I'm gonna have some more questions here. So, it's been 3 years since you did a physical therapy continuing education class. That's kind of like the lowest hanging fruit for staying, up to date with, current trends. Have you done any training programs? Have you enrolled in any programs?
No.
Okay.
You know, when they didn't even, what am I trying to say? My first 20 years of being a therapist, they didn't require continuing ed courses, but I did do them anyway, just for my own knowledge. So,
Have you been reading any journals, just on your own outside of classwork?
yes,
Okay. And what journals have you been reading?
just the PT Association.
Do you still get that on a regular basis?
I get it from Simon, the PT that I worked with before.
And when was the last time you looked at one of those journals?
Oh, probably 6 months.
All right. I want to talk about the letter that you received from Dr. Lynch. According to Dr. Lynch, you last worked with him in 2020. Is that correct?
Yes. We worked together at a skilled nursing facility. He called me grandma, I called him grandson.
Is he a lot younger than you?
He is.
Okay. According to him, you weren't really, you had no social interactions, that really, the last couple of years since you left at that employment, you'd just been Facebook friends. Is that a fair understanding of the relationship that you had?
Correct. We've spoken on the phone a couple times.
According to Dr. Lynch, you never brought up your case with the board, your probation, never went into the details. He stated in his letter he looked it up. Can you explain why you never felt comfortable talking with Dr. Lynch about the facts and circumstances of your board probation, or the reason why your license was revoked?
I just kept it personal.
Why did you keep it personal?
I can't answer that.
In 12 steps, I know that one of the things that I know you've completed your 12 steps. One of the things is, being able to accept that you're not really in control. I think that that's I've never done 12 steps, so I'm kind of abridging it here. But, so you can correct me at what the language is. But my understanding is typically when you complete 12 steps, the goal here is to not let alcohol control your life, and the goal is to be more of an open book and to let people know more about you and accept that you're not really in control of things. Is that a fair statement of completing 12 steps?
To some degree, yes. I'm sorry, I want to
Go ahead.
interact. I completed the 12 steps after I worked with him.
Do you think if you had completed 12 steps before you worked with him that you would have been more open with him?
I don't know.
That's a really actually good question. When did you complete the 12 steps?
Approximately 2 years ago. Year and a half ago.
How long were you going to AA? I mean, how many years had you been going to AA before you completed the 12 steps?
2 years.
You started going to AA, I thought you started going to AA in,
4 years ago.
okay. Your DUI didn't require you to go to AA?
Oh, yes, I went before. That was in 2014.
But at that time, you weren't really prioritizing the program?
I thought I was. It's progress, it's slow, it's hard,
All right, I'm gonna ask this question. You know, you were no longer working with Dr. Lynch. You felt close enough to approach him for a letter of reference for the board, stating that, you know, you were appropriate candidate for getting your license back. At that time, when you approached him for a letter, you, by your own testimony, would have completed the 12-step process. Why didn't you at that time take an opportunity to explain what had happened in your life, explain your DUI, and explain your probation issues?
I don't know.
At any point, did you ever tell Dr. Lynch, just your own words, that you were a recovering alcoholic?
I don't remember.
Okay. Dr. Lynch concluded his letter with saying that he could not speak to whether you had, quote, in his words, cleaned up your act. Do you know why he can't speak to that?
Probably because I didn't talk about it. And I had, asked for a hearing, I think it was before I was allowed to, and had asked him at that time to write a letter to also in 2019, I believe.
All right. Well, I just want to concentrate on this petition today. I know that there might have been a petition earlier that was barred, but let's just concentrate on the one that's before the board today. All right, let's turn to Dr. Nakarmi, Saman Nakarmi. You worked with him from, I believe, February 2020 to December 2020. Is that correct?
Yes, that sounds correct.
All right. So it's been approximately 2 years. We are in December of 2022 since you last worked with him.
Correct.
You said he gives you sometimes journals from the Physical Therapy Association. In the 2-year period since you worked with him, how many journals has he given you?
5.
And those 5 journals consist of the basically record of what you've been doing to keep yourself up to date the last 2 years?
Correct.
All right. Did you discuss your rehabilitation efforts with him?
No.
I did note in his letter he had stated that you were a little more open about why your license had been revoked. I mean, it mentioned that you had mentioned the DUI and that your license had been revoked. That seemed to be in his letter. So you were more open with him. Was there a reason you were more open with him and not as open with Dr. Lynch?
There was no reason.
All right, let's talk about your current work, and this is where I had said we'd get back to that. You're a pain management tech. Can you tell me what your current job is, or what the duties involve?
I use electrical shock treatment and radio frequency, mainly.
And is that in a role of kind of like a medical assistant under the direction of a mid-level or a doctor?
Yes.
And who trained you how to do those procedures?
Scott Paranod, who was the owner. It's changing, new ownership.
And is Scott, what is his background?
He's a doctor of nurse practitioner.
Okay. And you said there's going to be new ownership. Who's going to be the new owner of the clinic?
Doug Stone,
And what's his background?
doctor of nurse practitioner.
And my understanding, you were working at a physical therapy clinic. That's where the two physical therapists that you had interfaced previously with, you left that job for better pay. Is that correct?
Correct.
The current job you're doing at Covenant Care, that doesn't really involve any of your past experience as a physical therapist. That's a separate kind of career field.
Yes.
And you don't practice any physical therapy related care or practices at Covenant Care?
No.
When you were looking for opportunities, job opportunities for better pay, there were no physical therapy clinics that could offer you as a physical therapy tech more pay in your area? Was that what you were running into?
Correct.
In your narrative statement to the board, you stated you had made mistakes while on probation, but you don't like to focus on the past because it takes you to a dark place and you don't like to go there. So that's kind of a deep statement to make. I was kind of curious about that.
Where was that?
It was in your narrative statement. I can show it to you. Actually, it was actually in your statement to Monty. I'm sorry. Let me go back.
And council, is this exhibit 3?
It is, and I'm just going to find the page here. Page 145. You could just have a chance to read that and see if it refreshes your recollection of making that statement. Now we're on page 145 here.
Yeah, you know, you
Well, I'm going to ask some
you
questions.
don't want to, oh.
I want to ask
sorry.
some questions
I'm
about that.
sorry.
So I need to, because it's not in your actual written statement and it was said to someone else, I need to kind of establish you said it. So let me ask those foundational questions first. I've shown you a statement that's in Monty Martin's report of a statement that you made to him when you were preparing for this petition hearing. It's a statement regarding, you know, going to a dark place, you know, and not wanting to be in that dark place and making mistakes on probation. You don't like to focus on the past. I've shown you that statement. You've had a chance to read it. Does that refresh your recollection as to having made that statement?
It does. It doesn't say a dark place. It says a bad place.
Bad place. Okay, thank you for the clarification. Let's talk about that bad place. What is the bad place you're talking about?
Just, I just don't want to focus on the mistakes I've made because it gets me into kind of a depression and I don't like to go there. I want to stay focused on positive, happy things and being sober. I know you're not supposed to forget the past, but you aren't supposed to dwell on it either.
Okay, that's fair. My question is, you know, at some point though, don't you just have to accept the past to get past it?
Yes, you do.
Okay. Do you feel like
And
you're
you still have to work on it on a constant basis. It's not just over because you finished a 12 steps or whatever, you know, you have to focus on it every day.
Are you fearful that that bad place is a place that involves alcohol use?
Yes.
One of the things that we have these hearings for is an opportunity for you to explain to the board, you know, why, if your license is regranted, and I can tell you the board it's very unlikely the board would give you a free and clear license. They would probably place your license on significant terms of probation, just like you had before. What, what would be, in your outlook going forward, what would be different about a license on probation this time, with terms and conditions, going to Maximus, doing the outpatient, going to those tests, the tests that you said it was hard to check in for? What would it be different this time that would, that you would be successful?
Staying positive.
Staying positive is like a kind of an aspirational goal. Can you tell me the actual plan?
No.
One of the things you struggled with was testing requirements. You had 5 missed tests, you had 2 positive tests. How would you get in compliance with testing requirements?
Well, the 5 missed tests were because I didn't call in, I believe. And, I know I'm not having to get my son to work at 5 in the morning now and go to work at 6 in the morning. I think I have a little bit more, time in the morning, to remember to do that and set my alarm. Have someone remind me to call in.
You understand that's your responsibility, right? To call
I do
it?
understand that.
Okay.
And, that's one of the things that has been hard to forgive myself for.
All right. I know one of the problems you had on probation before was out-of-range testing, and that had to do with creatinine levels and water consumption. I know that at some point Maximus had wanted you to go to the doctor. Your probation was revoked and terminated before that occurred. If that occurs again where you've got out-of-range sampling, are you going to make a commitment to actually go to the doctor and get that done?
I did go to the doctor last time.
Okay.
It was out of range. She did not notify, I didn't know that she did not contact anybody to let them know I was okay.
Okay.
Medically.
I mean, from Max's standpoint, that doesn't help Maximus. So, the responsibility is the person who's on probation, the person going through the program. If you have to have that done and go to the doctor, would you promise to comply and make sure the doctor actually follows up?
I will. I didn't understand, I didn't know that the doctor had not done that.
Okay. All right, I just have a few more questions. Have you done any volunteer work in the last 4 years since your license was revoked? And this could be anything. This could be going to a soup kitchen. This could be picking up trash. This could be helping out with toy drive. This could be anything. So have you done any of that kind of work?
No.
Any charity work since that time? This would be similar to volunteer work, I guess. The answer is no.
No.
And have you volunteered your services at a physical therapy office? I know you can't work as a physical therapist, but just going to help, to staying up to date with techniques, just volunteering as a tech. Have you done any of that in the last 2 years?
No. No time.
How many hours a week are you working?
Fluctuates 30 to 40.
Can't ask for help, just best of your memory. So
Yeah,
30 to
that's it,
40
yeah.
hours a week?
Uh-huh.
Is that a yes?
Yes, I'm sorry.
And then you go to your AA meetings 3 to 5 times a week. It sounded more like 4. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. And those are an hour, so 4 hours AA. What else do you do?
Watch my granddaughter on half a day on Wednesday work out at the gym twice a week, Tuesday and Thursday.
How long is that?
Oh my,
Couple hours each time?
no, an hour,
So maybe 2 hours a week in the gym?
yes.
And if you watch your granddaughter on Wednesday for the morning, I'm guessing that's about
No.
5, afternoon or morning?
Afternoon,
Okay, and that's about 5 hours, I'm guessing?
3 to 5 hours.
Okay. What do you do on the weekends?
Get some rest. Clean my house.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you, Your Honor.
I'm going to now ask if any of our board members have questions, starting to my right with our president.
I have a couple of questions, just for some clarity. One is, I do not know what the term sober living environment means.
So if you know what that means, you can answer the question.
It's a house where everybody's sober,
Thank you.
from my understanding.
Thank you. And secondly, you were referring to some letters from Dr. Lynch, or a letter from Dr. Lynch, and I'm just not sure I have that.
Can you direct the board members to the Bates number and exhibit, please?
Sure, it's in Exhibit 1, and
And the date on that letter, please?
so the Dr. Lynch letter is Exhibit 5. The date is March 9th of 2021, and then there was a increase of that date to March 9th of 2022, like an attestation. So maybe the petitioner can explain to you why there's 2 different dates in the letter and 2 different signatures.
So counsel, you said exhibit 5. We don't have an exhibit 5.
I'm sorry, Bates number 5. Exhibit 1, Bates number 5.
Okay.
I know that the boards aren't necessarily Bates stamped, so I mean, I can bring up copies so we can see them.
Yes, that's the one.
That's the letter?
Yes, she's looking at the correct
Okay,
letter.
and then the letter right before it is the letter from Dr. Salman Nakarni.
Yes, I do have that.
Right, and that's page 4 of Exhibit 1.
I think I was a little confused because there was something said about Dr. Lynch maybe mentioning, don't know if she cleaned up her act.
Right, so it's not actually in the letter. That's
see.
in Exhibit 3, and that is the interview that was done by Mr. Martin.
Yes, that's my confusion. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
no
That's
problem.
helpful. Okay. And so thank you very much, Ms. Emery Jones, for being here today, for being here this morning. I do have a few questions. One is, since your sobriety date in 2018, have you had any drinks
No.
of alcohol?
No,
No. And when you open the refrigerator door and you see beer, does that make you want to drink or give you any urge to drink?
no, I don't see it because it's on the bottom shelf, usually behind a food item. So I don't open it and, oh, there it is.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I have to actually, look down underneath.
Should there be another death of someone very close to you, I'm wondering how you might avoid slipping back into going back to alcohol.
Make a call. That's what I didn't do, is call anybody for help.
And who would you call?
Someone in AA, maybe my sister. I can't answer that directly. I mean, specifically, I just know it's important to make a call when you need to do that, and I failed to do that, reaching out for saying, hey, I need you here, I want a drink. That was a very hard thing for me to learn to do.
Thank you. And since 2018, your sobriety date, have you had any strong urges to drink? And if so, what did you do to avoid it?
I'd start calling people, or I'd go to a meeting.
Are you or have you considered being a sponsor yourself?
I haven't done it. I know it's important to help others, but I'm just concentrating on me. I'm being selfish.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I have.
All right, continuing down to my right. Any questions from our board members?
No further questions.
Good morning. When did you decide to pursue reinstatement of your license? You talked about making a decision to pursue reinstatement of your license. And with the things that have gone on and in preparation for that, when did you make the decision to pursue reinstatement? And it's a process thing, I'm assuming, like, yeah, maybe I want to do that. Why do I not want to do that? Actually completing the application is part of it, but when did you decide?
Well, I decided in 2019, but it was too soon. And so then time went on, and I just got wrapped up in what I was doing,
Right?
and I think then I think it was last spring, I don't know what month exactly, that I thought I should probably look at doing that again. And also the age thing. I was gonna retire at 66,
Right.
but I'm gonna probably do that when I'm 70. So that was another marker in my decision.
Okay. Was there something, was there an event, was there something that said, okay, this is, now I'm gonna do it? Or like,
Yeah.
oh, you know what, that's where, or was it just progressive?
It was just progressive.
Okay.
I just, I was gonna do it a year sooner,
Mm-hmm.
and, I don't know why I decided not to. And then I got thinking about it more and more. And actually, I believe Scott Perinaud asked, if I was in the process of it. And so I got to thinking about doing it again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I decided, okay, let's do this.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, then to my left, and if you could just identify yourself for the record, so we have that as well. if there's
Pardon
any
me,
question.
Judge, I did have another question.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Of you.
Oh.
Ms. Jones has a witness, and I wasn't sure if there was going to be an opportunity to hear
Oh, absolutely.
if she wanted him to speak
Okay,
or,
so, so the plan is we want to finish with her testimony, and then I will allow her to call her witness. He will testify. I will allow Mr. Gatchett to ask him questions, and then all the board members, if you have any questions for him as well.
Thank you for that.
Yes, of course. All right, to my left, any questions from our board members to my left? Starting with our vice president.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, I know you're probably super nervous, and you don't have to be, as was stated earlier. So you've had a lot of things happen in the last 4 years. You've become a new grandparent, correct? And you moved to a new location. You said you lived in your home now for 2 years.
I've been at where I'm at for 2 years.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's 2 years. I don't think it's 3 yet.
Okay. And then you finished your 12 steps about 2 years ago. Did something happen within the last 2 years that have now put you on this course to get your license reinstated? Because it seems like you're on a positive streak. Sounds
Well,
like to me.
Yes, I am. And I think that was part of my decision to go ahead and pursue this process. I was very scared and very nervous about doing it. because I knew it would be difficult. And it was kind of a hard decision to make, but I just decided for my own peace of mind and my own, after 43 years, I graduated 43 years ago. And it's been my whole life, that I decided to pursue it. And yes, I have gone through a lot. But I've gone through a lot my whole life, so.
Yeah, I'm just kind of paying attention to the last 4 years and the things that have happened. And would you say like the number one reason that you're seeking to get your license back is financial?
Partly, but partly is for my own self-esteem, because that's, my whole well-being in doing therapy.
Would you also consider this being a turning point
Probably.
in your life?
Yes.
Like, okay. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Dale Armstrong, PT board member. In your capacity in the pain management clinic that you work in, do you find yourself giving any physical therapy advice?
Sometimes I want to, yes.
Do you disclose that you were a physical therapist? A licensed physical therapist?
No.
You do not, okay. I was wondering about the journals that you have been reviewing and reading. In what form? Are they hard copy or electronic?
I didn't know they had electronic.
Okay. I was just curious because I only received mine in electronic form for the past 4 or 5 years. So do you know the year on the hard copies?
No, I don't.
What types of articles have you read?
Just things on knee exercises, hip replacements, different things like that.
So if you were to get your license back, you're planning to go more back into post-operative orthopedics or what?
Probably.
And
I haven't given it much thought as to the future. I'm just trying to get through today.
I was just wondering if you have thought about your preparation to be back into clinical practice.
I just want to get through this step. Right here is where I'm at.
Okay. I have one more question though. Have you envisioned yourself as a physical therapist again in a fast-paced day where you are assessing and treating and you have back-to-back patients for 8 hours? And how do you envision yourself in that capacity again? And handling the stresses? Because I know I'm in clinical practice and it's very fast-paced. It's thinking on your feet. It's keeping up on research that happened a month ago. So I'm constantly going to the literature and making sure that I'm up to date. And I'm just wondering, how do you envision yourself so that you can serve your patients to the best and what they deserve?
I guess just the way I've always done it.
And how was that?
Fast paced.
The 2 PT clinics that you worked in, what were your day-to-day duties?
A lot of ultrasound, TANS unit, exercise programs.
And what was your supervision? What was the supervision?
PTs.
And what was your title?
Pardon?
What was your title in those 2 clinics?
PT tech.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that
Physical
term.
therapy, well, okay, the old term is an aide.
Okay.
It's
Oh.
just they say tech now.
Okay, so there was, how many other PT aides were in the clinic with you?
There was a PT assistant and the PT, and, well, the front office gal sometimes did some aid work, but that's it.
Okay. And did you stay in your role as a PT aide in those two clinics? You didn't deviate out into any kind of PT procedures or assessments?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Good morning, Ms. Jones. Katerina Ellaby, public member. I have a question about the 12-step program that you completed a couple of years ago. Which of the 12 steps was the most challenging for you?
The fourth step,
Which is?
forgiving people in my life and going and making amends.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
I have no questions, Robert.
Thank you. Any additional questions from our board members? Mr. Gadget?
Just a follow-up from that, Ms. Emery Jones, are you gonna be calling your sponsor as a witness today, your temporary sponsor?
No.
And we don't have a letter from that person. I know that your application was in March of 2022, but you're not submitting an additional letter today supplementing from your temporary sponsor?
No.
Okay, no additional questions, thank you.
Oh.
Yes, we have one more question from our board member.
Tanya McMillan, Vice President. Do you have a social circle? Do you have a group of, or a friend, or do you do anything outside of work?
My family?
And,
No, I don't.
what do you do for pleasure? Movies, TV,
Oh, TV.
music? Okay, all right. Thank you.
And the gym, I go and, enjoy that. I actually miss too many days.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Emery Jones, is there anything else you would like to share with the board? No further testimony?
No, just thank you all
All
for
right.
being here.
And I know that you have a witness that you wish to call. Who is your witness?
Doug Stone.
All right, Mr. Stone, please come up to the table here. Please, well, yeah, I'm going to swear you in, but we'll have you sit down first. All right, and so before I swear you in, I'm just going to briefly explain. Ms. Emery Jones has called you as a witness. If you have a statement that you want to provide, you can provide that. Otherwise, she can ask you questions. So be thinking about that, and then I will ask Mr. Gatchett if he has questions for you as well, and the board members as well. So that's how it will, how the process will be. All right. Okay. All right. Please stand. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please have a seat.
Thank you.
And please state and spell your name.
My name is Douglas, Douglas, M as in Michael, Stone, Stone.
All right, Mr. Stone. I know that this can be a little awkward and you may be a little anxious, but just take a deep breath. Speak maybe a little more slowly than you're used to speaking in normal conversation, and that way we can make sure we can all understand you and hear you. And as I mentioned, you can, if you have a statement you want to provide or questions that Ms. Emery Jones wants to ask you, you can do it either way.
May I ask, do I have a time limit?
Well,
Like, is this in 1 minute? Or is
Oh,
it 10
no.
minute or 5 minutes?
well, I think we'll just see how it goes. How about that? No,
That's
no set time limits, but we just do need to be mindful. We typically take a break at 10:30, but I'm going to go ahead and just let us start. but we will for sure break at noon for lunch. We won't go beyond that, all right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, you may begin.
Your Honor, distinguished members of the board, Counselor, I am currently the owner of the CEO of Vital Health Medical Clinic, a very, very rural clinic way out in Penn Valley. We have approximately 1,200 patients. Those patients break up into about 48% geriatric, another 26% adult, senior adult, and then the rest are just kind of a hodgepodge. We do not see very many pediatrics. We don't see very many youth. So our clientele are really those that are older, frail, and are in a very distant part of California. It takes very difficult for them to get in to our clinic. I want to paint that picture first so that you understand what Jolene does as she deals with these people. Are they in pain? Yes. This is not a pain clinic. This is a primary care clinic. So pain comes from peripheral neuropathy, from diabetic neuropathy, from a number of different kinds of things that you would probably be familiar with in your profession. But we treat it both with medication and Jolene. So our patients are, I don't know how to describe it. I would say as dependent on me as an NP or the NPs or the MDs as they are on being Jolene. I would say approximately a third of perhaps the revenue that we see, and it's in that ballpark, I'm guessing, is because those patients need this therapy. They go down the hall, and we schedule them to see her. When I first started in this clinic, I was a student, and my doctor, Dr. Noble, 35-year Sutter career professional, internist, I didn't know who this lady was. I was just sitting in the provider room doing my notes, and she was constantly coming in and talking to the doctor. So I thought maybe she's a doctor, maybe she's an MP. I didn't know who she was, but she was constantly consulting about the patients, about their situation, about what she thought, what should be doing. And Dr. Mark would give her his best opinion. But that goes on day in and day out in our clinic. That is sort of the way the flow of the clinic goes. I'd like to give you a little bit of my own background. I'm a retired Marine general. If you want to waste some time, you could Wikipedia General Doug Stone. I got out, became initially a cop, and today I am a lieutenant in Sac County Sheriff's Office in the reserve. I say that only because I probably have rolled up a couple hundred 5150s, any number of domestic violences that were built on this kind of alcoholic or drug dependencies. So I'm familiar from that in the field. I later became an EMT and a paramedic for Sac Metro. In that capacity, I think I have roughly 10,000 patient hours with people who have had to deal with this very difficult challenge. And today, actually every week, I work at Heritage Oaks Acute Mental Hospital, where I deal with patients who have this dependency and who are suffering from it, normally in the case of depression, but and acute depression, but also it folds over into other things that get bopped out, like bipolar and schizophrenia and you name it. So I see those patients in those capacities and have for a long time. Most certainly I saw it in my military career as well, which was normally 39 and a half years. I see them now in the rooms when I go in to meet with them. Their dependency, their issues are so real and so tangible. It's hard, I'm not sure I can exactly describe the difference between a medical problem and a psychological problem. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? There's a distinct difference between somebody who has a medical dependency. I was born on the Navajo reservation, 35% of that reservation where my mother was the NP are alcoholics. My brother is, my sister. My sister is, so the family has had to deal with this a lot. I think about the way my mother dealt with it, and she dealt with it exactly the way I, as her boss, am going to deal with it. She has a job to do. She needs to be trained. She needs to be so well trained that she knows everything about what it takes for the patients, because it's always about the patients. And I believe Jolene, more than anybody that I've dealt with, at least in this clinic, except for perhaps Dr. Mark, is as committed to patients as I have known anybody to be. She didn't ask me to come here. I asked her if I could come here, because it would be a travesty to not allow her to continue to work in our environment for our patients. And I know you probably haven't seen a Marine General get teary-eyed, but this is a tough topic for me, and it is critical for our clinics, and I'm here because our patients need this woman there, period. I also want to point out that in her office, she has physical therapy journals. She has boards of all kinds of things that to me look like physical therapy. I'm a nurse practitioner. I'm not a physical therapist. I didn't come out of that world. But she has charts and pressure points and all kinds of things that are in there, as long as instrumentation. She came to me last week and said, look, this is just really not working. I can't get this done. I got on Amazon right then and bought her a new machine. It's being shipped in now. So she has been working with extremely poor support from the last owner, but she has bought all this stuff and it's all in there, and she desperately tries to get this care for the patients. I wanted to say her daughter also works in a capacity there, and her granddaughter will come in at the end of the day. So she's close to her family. The family's there all the time, and if you were to ask me who's their support, if it's not her family, I wouldn't know who it would be, because they are clearly there to support her. I was the one, in part, that said, why not try to get your credential back, if only just for your own personal pride, and for that little one, when she comes in, to know that her grandmother is a physical therapist. I mean, you were, and you're dealing with this. Alcoholism is a terrible medical disease. Terrible medical disease. It is not one that people can say, I'll throw you in jail, which I have done, and you're going to get cured. It won't work. It is a combination, and the 12-step is probably the best. This particular lady is committed to doing that. Her problem in the past has been largely financial, in my opinion. We are going to fund this program for her. We will fund whatever it takes to help her get through this. So I want to make that on the record, that we are going to ensure that she has, and I think it's $300, I forgot what it is, the cost per month, but whatever it is, we will have it paid for her. So she doesn't have to worry about that, which she clearly has had to do in the past few years. I've only known her for about a year, maybe a little bit less than that, and lots of times I'm in with patients, so I just know that when I see the patient and I need to do a referral, thank God I can do my referral to somebody that's in this building. Because, and this is an important point, if I can't give this referral to somebody in my hall, my patients are not going to get it. They will not be able to find a PT or anybody anywhere near them who can help them. So it's absolutely essential to me that, and to our patients, that we have this capacity as a tech or whatever we can do. If she can gain more experience and do more and with more equipment, I'm going to buy it. I've already bought a $140,000 machine that does laser stuff for the hands and the skin of patients because they're hurting. So we're going to do that too. I just jotted out a couple of notes. I am huge on continuous education. I don't think Jolene would be able to stay working for me if she wasn't willing to commit to continuous education. It doesn't work for me. It never has. So everybody that has always worked for me in any capacity has had to continue on with that to the extent they can, to the extent they can afford it, and to the extent they have the time. The last point that I guess I want to make is that I really feel in coming here that I've watched a woman who has had a difficult time. I don't want to go into all the difficulty that I've heard, but I want to point out one point. From the day that I arrived, Jolene was 100% open about her current condition. There was never a question that she was on probation. None of it. Never even a doubt. She's completely open about it to me. So to hear somebody maybe didn't hear about this is not true. I mean, she didn't even know me, and she was completely open. And everybody in that office and every one of the providers, they all know exactly what the situation is. She's never, ever, ever done anything deceptive. And the last point I would make is, I don't know, in our staff, and you can have a lot of tweeners in the medical space, but I've never known anybody as honest as she is. So I think if she says she's had a hard time, it's because she has a hard time. I think if she says it might be difficult for me to do it, it's because it might be difficult. But I want you to know that as long as I'm there, she's gonna have the support to get through this and get on with it. And I'm asking you on behalf of my patients, and I mean hundreds of patients who will be desperately hurt if she is not available, because I cannot provide her that support in any other way. So I'm here predominantly for my patients, and I think every one of the patients would say the same thing. I don't go to the clinic and see patients come out of her room or get ready to go in that aren't inordinately happy and relieved that they've been with Jolene. Every single one of them, bar none, will ask, can I have another session? Can you authorize another session? Can you let me get more time with her? So she is as important to those patients as I am making it out to be. That concludes my statement. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Ms. Emery Jones, are there any questions you have for Mr. Stone?
No, I don't have
All right,
any.
Mr. Gatchett, any questions for Mr. Stone?
Just a few. Do you prefer, is Mr. Stone appropriate, or as a retired general, do you prefer General Stone?
You can call me Doug.
How about?
You can do general, you can do doctor, you can do grandfather.
Let's do, we'll go with general. So, I noticed that you were a two-star general, so we'll use that. General Stone, you received your nurse practitioner license when?
Just now. I'm right at the board in the process.
Okay, so I saw there was a nursing license from 2021. Is that correct?
Okay, with that number. Oh, I'm sorry. I kind of took myself off stage.
I have a public health nurse 562770 is the license number, and that was issued December 2nd, 2021. Is that correct?
Yeah, my number is 95 244 643.
Okay, and that's a registered nursing license, and that was also issued March of 29th, 2021?
Yes, sir. That feels right.
So at this time, you're a registered nurse.
I'm a registered nurse. My application, or all of the programmatics and clinicals are done. It's before the board for the NP certification, and I have started the psych mental health NP program. Actually, and the DNP, but it's a good one,
All right. You said you're the CEO of the Vital Health Clinic. Do you have any co-owners in that clinic?
I do. Dr. David Kyle, Kyle. He's actually in California. The MD must own 51%, so he's a 51% owner, and I'm 49.
Got it. Is he also your supervising physician? Or will he be under when you're a nurse practitioner?
He is, no, that would probably be Dr. Mark. Well, actually, I won't necessarily require one, but I would think Dr. Kyle would do that. That's what he's been doing.
Yeah, the legislative change, okay.
Exactly. At February, something or another, I can stand on him.
Okay. You've been working, General, with Ms. Emery Jones for the last year. Does she ever perform assessments or evaluations in her role?
No, I think, in fact, I'm glad you brought that up, because I thought that's what she should be doing, and when I would ask, she was meticulous about saying she can't do them. I didn't understand why that. I didn't understand why that was, but Dr. Noble basically does that assessment. She talks to him about what she sees and observes, and then she articulates kind of the plan she wants to put together based on the doctor's notes and his assessment in our EMR system.
So she does put together some of the plan for treatment in terms of the electroshock therapy based on what the doctor has kind of given as an assessment?
Yes, and I think they've been working together long enough that he sort of says, sort of like, you did for blank, you know what I mean? I don't see it laid out so much as, and I also work in the OR. There it's pretty regimented, but I think in principle, she's doing what the doctor's telling her to do. That's what it feels like to me.
All right. General, does she, then when a patient goes through a course of treatment, does she do an evaluation to determine if the treatment is sufficient?
I think she definitely reports back to Dr. Mark on what she finds. And then Dr. Mark makes that decision. It's been my observation, Dr. Mark makes that decision and then says, you know, why don't we do this, or what do you think about that? And they have a chit chat, and then he will turn in another script for more sessions if that's what he thinks is right.
Do you think because she has significant experience as a physical therapist in her past, do you think that she's treated differently than maybe a medical assistant who would not have had that experience or training? You know, so I'm getting at, do you think she's given more leeway or less leeway? Or
I don't think she's given any more leeway, but I think she's given more respect. I think when, and again, you know, this is almost like hearsay, right? So I'm sort of sitting in the provider room, doctor's sitting in the provider room, she comes in and talks. It sounds to me very collegial, and it sounds to me like, you know, she really knows what's going on, and then the doctor's kind of, it helps him understand the situation better. You know, it's sort of like if I spoke in German, I flew in German, if I flipped over to German right now, I can be very precise in German, but nobody else will understand me. That's a little kind of what goes on there. They're very precise about what they're in, I'm not totally in tune with it.
now, General, I know in your statement you had stated you were worried that she could not continue the treatment or the work that she's doing for you. I would hope you would understand that this hearing is not actually going to change what she's doing at your clinic at all. This hearing is to see whether she gets back her license as a physical
Right, I understand that,
therapist.
but with all
Okay.
due respect, I've watched hearings over 40 years go south on individuals, and so, you know, you may have heard something today, the board may have heard something today, they go, I don't like that, that really bothers me, maybe we need to be more rigorous. So I want her to be back to be a PT, but I want her to be a PT as much for her own good and others. I want to have that flexibility in our clinic to have an additional help with assessments. I desperately want her to get back into training and have the very best training we can provide for her, so that I can say, when we fill these out, that she is under the tutelage of, and then fill in that blank. I absolutely want all that, but the truth is, what I want is our patients to have as good a care as they can, and my fear is that the board decision could go south on her, and then we're out, even what we have right now.
Well,
And that's just a fear, and Counselor, I respect your statement.
I will tell you this, the board's power is to grant licensure or to take licensure away. So right now, the board she does not have licensure. Where the board would get sideways is if she was practicing physical therapy without a license.
Yeah,
So that would be a criminal matter, and that wouldn't be really for the board, that would be for a local DA to deal with.
that's great.
So I just, I want to try to clarify some of what's going on
I
here.
thank you, and I appreciate that, because I was very concerned about that.
Let's talk about your clinic. Does your clinic offer volunteer services or volunteer activities?
We haven't to date. I'm glad you brought that up, because Dr. Mark, MP Beverly, and I have now decided, I'm going to be bringing in neurostimulation. It starts next Wednesday, and it will be for those that have chronic pain associated with peripheral neuropathy, primarily diabetic peripheral neuropathy. We intend to open that up for others, and I can't tell you right now, I'd have to look at my notes, but there's some kind of a nonprofit that we can put together that allows us to do that, and that, we hope, will allow patients to come into us, and we can give them that care for a trivial amount. I could look on my phone what the name of it is, and we were just talking about it 2 days ago, but it's like a federal grant, so we intend to do that.
What made you go back, you know, I was seeing that, you know, you had a career in the reserves, the Marine Reserves for 30-plus years. I saw that you were activated for Iraq. You were part of a reorganization of prisons for an Operation Iraqi Freedom. And then you left that career, and then you did what after that?
Became a cop.
Okay, and how long were you a police officer?
I still am. So that's been 12, 14 years now.
Was it in the reserves the entire time, or were you active duty at some point?
No, I was active duty in El Dorado Hills. This is a very short story, but I did 54 felony arrests in the first year, drew my gun half that time, and decided I'd had enough, and switched over to Sac County that has a little bit more degree of freedom. Ended up going into, you know, in the car and doing traffic, and my first traffic was a terrible car accident, and I was trying to help the patients, and my sergeant ordered my ass out in the street to control traffic, and I said, look, I'm not doing this. I mean, I said, who does who's gonna take care of these people? He goes, fire will be here. So I just went into EMT, became a paramedic, and went into fire while still staying in the reserves.
Okay, so you were active as a police officer for a couple of years approximately?
5 years.
5 years.
Something like
And then you go become an EMT, then you go into fire.
that. Then as a paramedic.
Okay. And then did you go back to get your nursing degree?
Yeah, so then what happened is my captain said, look, you're really good at this, you ought to think about doing nursing. And Samuel Merritt has, if you already have your bachelor's, Samuel Merritt has a fast track program. So I applied for that and got in as a complete 100% side note, but just for the record, General Petraeus wrote my letter to get in nursing school, which is classic. And I got accepted, went through the program, went into the ER, OR, and ICU, and then my I think my charge nurse said, look, you ought to think about being an MP. So I went back to the same school, applied, got into the next class, and have been a working nurse while doing the MP.
How many more years do you plan on working?
Well, I'm going to stick with my mother's role. So my aunt, her sister just retired at 91 as a career nurse. My mother retired at 90 as a nurse. So I've got a few years. I would say this depends on my wife of 51 years. If she doesn't cut me off at the knees, I'll probably go for another 15 years, 10, 15. I don't have any health issues.
Right. I mean, I'm not asking that, obviously to terminate or get your retirement. I just, part of this process is if Miss Emery Jones gets back her license and she is going to be on probation. The
Sure.
license probation
Makes
will
total
be
sense.
there. A large part of this is, and the reason why she failed before, she did not have support. And so my questions to you, if you're looking at practicing for 10 to 15 years, I'm guessing same clinic, ownership of that clinic, it sounds like you're pretty set there now. That would be the plan, to stay there for the next 10 to 15
Absolutely,
years.
that's the plan.
Okay.
And look, I may get really mushy on topics of patient care and taking care of people and stuff like that, but I want you to know that I am no soft cookie when it comes to training or expectations of employee conduct. I respect Jolene for everything she's done, but I will not respect her if she backtracks on any of this stuff, and I will not forgive her if she does. So my intent is to be there to support her in every conceivable way I can, but she has to carry the load herself too.
Okay. I have no further questions for the general. Thank you, General.
All right, and I'm going to now ask our board members if they have any questions, starting to my right with our president.
Alicia Urbina, Amen. Thank you for being here today, General. I have no questions.
I thought you were going to tell me you're from the Navy.
Any questions farther down?
No further questions.
Okay.
I have no questions, thank you.
All right, and then to my left with our vice president.
No questions, but thank you for your service.
I was counting on a question, ma'am.
Dale Armstrong, a PT board member. I do have one question. If the license was reinstated, there could be a recommendation of monitoring, of PT monitoring. What would be the plan for that?
I think that's an excellent question. First of all, let me say we will ensure it happens. But let me also say, I don't know your medical specialty well enough to know if an MD or an MP who's not trained in PD can do the monitoring. If not, then I think we will arrange, I'm putting together a contract right now with a consortium that has video conferencing medical care so that we can bring them in if we need to have a consult with a cardiologist, for example. I noticed the other day they have physical therapy in that. So I will find somebody who will answer to me for that responsibility and bring them in. But I can't tell you how we can do it unless you can tell me if I can do it. If I can do it, MD can do it, MP can do it, and then we're in good shape. If I need to get somebody else outside, I would need to consult with one of you, look at a directory, find somebody, and approach them with a subcontract.
Thank you for your answer.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, General. I have no further questions.
You're getting off easy today.
I am. I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Other than to say thank you for your service, General, I have no further questions.
If I might respond to that, because I have that statement told to me, as you know, so many times. I was in Vietnam. When I came out of Vietnam, there was no Jason Bud, your service, and really quite nasty during those years. But what I like to say to people who say thank me for my service, what I like to say is in my last tour alone, I lost 78 Americans, 78. And those are the people that we should thank. So I take it on their part, that appreciation, because they don't, their moms, their wives, their sisters, their kids, they don't have them. It's a labor of love every year to communicate with them and their families. They are doing okay. Some have turned to alcohol because of it. But truly, I thank you for the statement, but I encourage you to think about all those that didn't come back, because those are truly, genuinely the ones that I think responsible leaders think about. And so I thank you for the statement.
All right, thank you. If there's no further questions for the general. Oh, yes.
I just have one more statement. Thank you for sharing that. I say it as a child of a Army veteran who's now passed on.
Yes,
I'm a
ma'am.
military brat, and not only do you serve, but the families
For the
serve
families.
at the same time.
Yes, ma'am, and I wish,
so,
and I so believe in everything you just said, and it's why I feel like the statement for me to say thank you is so limited, because it is the families, it's everybody that has to make that sacrifice, and those that don't do it don't know it. They just don't know it, and thank you for your service.
All right, there's no further questions for the general. You're free to have a seat back and
Thank you, ma'am.
the audience. Ms. Emery Jones, any further evidence or testimony to present to the board?
No, I don't.
All right. Mr. Getch, do you have any closing remarks?
The board's tasked with, for a petition for reinstatement under Title 16, California Code of Regulations 1399.21. It's set forth in the board's regulations. There's 4 areas the board looks at in terms of determining whether a petition for reinstatement should be granted. It is the petitioner's burden, by clear and convincing evidence, to prove the petition is appropriate. And so those reinstatement proceedings occur with my role representing the people of the state of California. In this role, I don't represent the board. I'm not the board's attorney. So the nature of the questions that have to be asked are questions: is this person a good person for reinstatement of their license? And looking at the regulations, we have the nature and severity of the act. And in this case, it was a .20 DUI. There was no accident, no harm to people on the road, so that lowers some of the severity. The CHP officer that conducted the stop noticed that she almost lost control, but thankfully did not. We have to look at the acts of failing Maximus. We had 2 positive alcohol tests while under supervision. We had 5 missed call-ins, which resulted in missed tests. And then we had 3 out-of-range tests. We also had some delinquency of fee. There are no evidence of new acts or crimes. That would be number 2. Number 3 is the time elapsed since the acts led to revocation. In this case, that time is running about 4 years. Her license was revoked in 2018. That's when the stay of the probation stay was lifted. And then finally, evidence of rehabilitation. That's the 4th prong, and that's usually the hardest prong, and it's usually the most important prong. So what evidence of rehabilitation is there in the case? And I will say that up until the testimony of General Stone, my argument would have been very against granting relicensure for this petitioner. I think the only evidence of rehabilitation that she provided to this board is completing 12 steps 2 years ago, but unfortunately she has no witness as her current temporary sponsor, and she has no letter from that person to verify that. So we have basically her testimony stating she completed. She's done no volunteer work, she's done no charity work, she's done no inpatient, no outpatient, no sober living. I would highlight it is concerning that she continues to live with her son and that her son continues to drink. I'm aware that that is not the alcohol of her choice, but at the hearing, and as it was set forth in the board's decision of that hearing that the judge wrote, I remember her specifically saying that she was going to work on removing alcohol from her house, that it was something that now dawned on her she was going to do it, and that has not occurred. So we have that. In terms of training components, we have 3 years of no CEs, so none in 2020, none in 2021, none in 2022. Over a 2-year period, we have 5 hard copy journals. As Board Member Armstrong pointed out, those journals, we just don't know the age of those journals. She pointed out that now those journals are electronic, not in hard copy. I don't really know what training she has been undertaking in the last 2 years to stay current as a physical therapist. I do know that Ms. Emery Jones had an extensive history, and that's set forth as a physical therapist, so she had a lot of training experience. I just don't know where she's at currently in terms of current education and being up to date. In terms of rehabilitation, under the fourth prong, it does not appear that she presents strong evidence of rehabilitation. I guess that's actually number 5. Number 4 is compliance with terms of probation, not really relevant to this. At least current probation. She did fail her previous probation. I will say that General Stone does present a very strong witness and appears to be a very strong advocate in her corner. If the board grants rehabilitation, I'm sure, or grants her relicensure with terms and conditions of probation, I'm sure that, General Stone would be a part of that. I just don't know if she's actually met her burden to get there. I would also note that if this board chooses not to grant her her license back this time, she would have another opportunity, based on the code, to bring us another petition over in a few years. That may be the appropriate way to treat this. And allow her that opportunity to present rehabilitation to the board, which really just is not in this record. This record is really devoid of that. And so I would say that General Stone would appear to be an advocate in her corner, that she continues to work at his clinic, continues to treat patients, and actually does cross those bridges of doing training, doing CE, doing volunteer work, doing charity work, getting up to date with her training experience. Then maybe she's in a better position to actually petition this board for reinstatement of her license. And so with those comments, I will submit that the Attorney General's office is objecting to reinstatement of her license based on this record, but I will give her a great deal of credit for having General Stone come and testify. I give a great deal of credit and weight to General Stone's testimony that she does appear to finally have a strong support behind her that could actually get her to in a place that would make a stronger petition for that. So thank you.
All right, Ms. Emery Jones, closing remarks to the board. Would you like to give closing remarks to the board?
I just want to thank everybody for being here and giving me the opportunity to do this. And I thought about having my previous sponsor be here. Unfortunately, she had a very ugly death. And I didn't think about my temporary sponsor. And I don't know why I didn't. There was something else I wanted to add, but it went away. And that's all. And I want to thank General Stone for being here very much. And I feel really a lot more supported with him in the clinic now, where I wasn't before.
All right, is the matter submitted to the board for consideration? Matter submitted to the board?
Pardon?
Matter submitted to the board now for consideration?
Yes.
All right, matter submitted,
Submitted on behalf of the New General office.
and the record is closed. We are off the record. All right, thank you. You are free to go.
Thank you.
Okay, it's 11 a.m. We're going to recess and go into closed session. I'm not sure that there'll be time to come back on record before our lunch at noon. So I believe it's safe to say we'll be back at 1. And so let's make that a plan. Thank you. Okay, good afternoon. The time is 1:05 p.m., again, December 7th, and we are back from recess. We're going to pick up with agenda item number 6, which is review and approval of the September 2022 meeting minutes.
All right, Sarah Conley, and I'm going to fill in for Brooke Arneson on the minutes. So we'll just go through page by page. Give me one moment. I don't have page numbers on my hard copy, so I'm gonna bring up the electronic copy. All right, we will start. Let me get back up. If you all are ready, we will begin on page 9. And I'll just go through each page and let me know if you need me to stop. Page 10. 11, 12, 13, 14.
Yes.
Okay.
Change conducing to conducting audits,
Got it.
line number 223.
Thank you. Any more edits on that page? Okay. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41.
Yes.
Okay.
Line 1262, I read the sentence a couple times and wondered if there should be a comma after work before employers.
Yes, I see.
I have a point of clarification for that whole sentence, actually.
Okay.
It states that if cannabis use is happening at work, I think it's if the employees are using cannabis after work.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you for that catch.
Any more on 41? 42? And that's the last page.
I move to adopt the September meeting minutes with the suggested edits.
I second.
We have a motion by myself to adopt the meeting minutes with edits and a second by Dr. Dale Armstrong. Is there further board discussion? Is there any public comment? Roll call vote, please.
Alicia Rabina, amen.
Aye.
Dale Armstrong.
Aye.
Jesus Dominguez.
Aye.
Daniel Drummer. Katarina Ellaby.
Aye.
Jonathan Irvine.
Aye.
Tanya McMillan.
Aye.
All right, 7-0, motion passes.
Thank you, and again, compliments to staff for very well-written minutes. Agenda item number 7, President's Report, proposed meeting calendar for 2023 and 2024. Those are actual physical handouts. Do we have any at the back of the room in case anyone needs to refer to it? Okay, so at the back of the room, there's a couple of handouts. Let's look at 2023, and I'll let staff comment on meeting locations.
So our next proposed meeting is in March, and we have confirmed that the University of the Pacific will host us for those days. From there, we will be back in June here in Sacramento, and then on the road in September to be determined. We are looking for a Bay Area school at that point. We will probably be soliciting either Ohlone or Samuel Merritt, and so we'll see what happens with that. And then back here again in December of next year. Staff and I are researching and kind of contemplating bringing a proposal before the board about adjusting the calendar again. If you remember, we at one time had board meetings a month prior to what we are doing now. And then to kind of clear up traffic, better align with school curriculums and legislative calendars, we shifted the whole schedule back by 1 month. And now we're looking at maybe at that time when we made that decision, we shouldn't have went back 1 month. We should have maybe went forward 1 month. And so we're going to continue to plan for the next meeting to be in March at UOP. But if our research shows, we may come to the board with a suggestion of altering the calendar again for the remainder of 23 or beginning in 24. So, and the handouts kind of reflect some of those ideas.
Thank you. Any board member comment on the March dates coming up first? We'll look at that first before the rest of the calendar. Any problem with that? Okay. Hearing none, it sounds like we might hear from staff more at that meeting, but as of now, looking at the calendar, any comments or anything to discuss, or we do need to adopt this, right, Jason?
Yes.
So a motion.
Motion for March?
A motion to approve the 2023 meeting calendar?
I'll make a motion to approve the 2023.
The newly proposed one, right?
No, just the
other one.
proposed.
Just the
Right, so the
proposed.
newly proposed is what we're looking at, possibly in the future, but in
Okay,
our,
I got it.
yeah,
Okay.
in our research and contacting the schools, we're trying to determine, who could host in the months of January, who could host in the months of April or October, and if we would actually have students in that period of time, if it better aligns with the legislative calendar, so the board could be more actionable when it comes to legislation that's moving through the houses. So the handout that you have that says newly proposed is something that we're contemplating, but we'll bring it back with a little bit more information at the March meeting.
Got it. So we have a motion by Ms. McMillan for adopting the 2023 proposed meeting calendar. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Irvin. Thank you. Any further board discussion? Any public comment?
Question.
Oh, yes.
Question about just scheduling. I think it's in my recollection that scheduling of meetings was partly done because of a requirement of, I believe it was 90 days or 100 days between meetings for ability to
Act on enforcement cases. So we do have 100-day timelines that we have to be aware of, and the quarterly calendar plays quite nicely with that idea. One of the things in our research that we're looking at is if we do shift the calendar back by 1 month, there will be this kind of span where we run the risk of kind of a void of time where it's beyond the 100 days. And if discipline cases should come up during that time, we would have to have a teleconference meeting to span that gap.
And just to refresh, teleconference at this point is anticipated the only way that those meetings can occur, and not via web.
Correct, currently.
Because of the way things used to be, without changes to legislation, we're going back to the way things used to be.
Correct.
With telephone conferencing and
So we have legislation in place right
location
now,
noticing and all that.
but it expires
June 30th.
June 30th of this year. So for the rest of the calendar, if we chose to create that kind of span in between exceeding the 100 days, we would be limited to the old-fashioned, antiquated teleconference, unless further legislative solutions come up before then.
For those of you who haven't lived through the art of the teleconference, the joy of the teleconference, best wishes.
Any further board discussion? Any public comment? Roll call vote, please.
Alicia Verbena, amen.
Aye.
Dale Armstrong.
Aye.
Jesus Dominguez.
Aye.
Daniel Drummer.
Aye.
Katarina Ellaby.
Aye.
Jonathan Irvin.
Aye.
Tanya McMillan.
Aye.
All right, 7-0, the motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, proposed 2024 calendar, no action needed, but let's take a look at it anyway. And we've got a couple March dates, a couple June dates, September dates, as well as December dates that are just placeholders for now. Any comments from staff?
I mean, regardless of moving forward or back a month to kind of get out of the traffic of DCA resources, the legislative calendar, and the idea of getting a little bit more involvement with schools and students to participate at our meetings, that's really kind of the crux of what we're looking at right now, trying to determine what might be a better calendar. I think we're all, we've all come to consensus at this point that the Northern California, Southern California timeframes work, either March or April being the Bay Area, September, October being Southern California. It's worked out fairly well for us in the past. December and June here in Sacramento in this hearing room, we have 3 hearing rooms to choose from at that point. The traffic's not too bad. There are other boards meeting today and tomorrow. And luckily, there's not, too many where we had to compete for webcast services or WebEx services or something like that. So, but it is something, it's one of the things that we're using in the math, trying to determine what would be the best calendar moving forward.
Just from legal counsel's perspective, this week itself is a popular week.
It is.
So I was double booked both days for this meeting, and then things sort of changed, and I'm not. But in 2023, I'm also booked in 2 separate meetings on this block, so just have that input.
Yep. And that's something that we're kind of painfully aware of, right, is the competition for the number of DCA boards that happen to be meeting in the same weeks or in the same months even, right? So December is a very popular board meeting month. January is still pretty popular, but not as. And so there are some weeks in January, if we chose to do them, say, the 11th or 12th of January, we'd be the only board meeting happening at that point. Then we just have to take into consideration how that aligns with the legislative calendar and the board's ability to act on legislation if it's timely. And if it's here in Sacramento, as an example, could we get Sac State or Sac City PTA program to participate, and how? So we're still trying to kind of work through some of that.
Yeah, I think it's important to look at the resources that will be available and will not be available at certain times of the year. And so thank you in advance for researching it out and coming back and letting us know what works best. I know that you're probably not gonna get all of us to say when's the best time on our schedules, right?
Sure.
But, I mean, that's just the way it goes, so please do let us know what works best for the board.
But having said that, I would like the board's feedback. If there are conflicts that you have in your schedules with certain months for board meetings, please let us know, because it is, you know, the volunteer work that happens with this board is still important to us as well, and we need your participation also.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, any other further board comment? Public comment? Thank you, Jason. Let's move to agenda item number 8, Executive Officers Report.
So I'll start my report by saying, oh, how the seasons have changed. Since our last meeting, we have experienced quite a lot of movement. And so I'll start with some of the most timely. First, it's my pleasure to announce the appointment of the board's new Assistant Executive Officer, effective November 1st of this year, our own Sarah Conley.
Welcome, Sarah.
As you may know, Ms. Conley has served the PTBC for many, many years, since 2001. And she's had the opportunity to provide both technical and analytical support within various programs and multiple capacities as well. Enforcement, licensing, legislation and regulation, board relations, the list goes on. In her most recent role as the manager over the Applications and Licensing Services Program, she was able to develop a vast in-depth expertise in our own business processes and has helped in implementing new, innovative, out-of-the-box ideas that have not only benefited our stakeholders, but our staff as well. She brings a hands-on approach to her team, and we can expect her strong work ethic to inspire staff in meeting the goals and objectives of this board. So, welcome, Sarah, and thank you for accepting the position. Secondly, and this is semi-bittersweet, and also effective November 1st of this year, the PTBC has had to say farewell to our newly appointed CPS manager, Erica Calderon. Ms. Calderon has been appointed as the new executive officer of the Osteopathic Medical Board. So talent is kind of hard to hold on to, and I'm sure they're coming for Sarah next. But while Erica was with us, she made quite an impression on staff, and staff still consider her to be a member of the PTBC family. We're still in contact often, and we can continue to be so. And we will watch her lead her new board to success in the future. We'd like to say congratulations to Erica and wish her the best of luck. And again, talent is hard to come by right now. So, having said that, and due to vacancy, the PTBC is currently recruiting for 2 staff services managers, one to replace Erica and one to replace Sarah's vacancy in applications and licensing. As well as that, we're also recruiting 1 full-time analyst to serve as the board's budget analyst. So, for application services, it's just a reminder for your ever-growing profession. There are now 22 CAPTE accredited PT programs in California, with another 7 in development. And it's not just PTA either. There are now 18 CAPTE accredited PT programs as well, and with 1 additional in development. It's a fairly significant increase, and we'll certainly see the impact of it in the applications unit. And there may be a need for additional staff in the future as a result. For consumer protection services, I would like to give kudos to the enforcement staff. Sarah and I have been trying to fill the void of our CPS manager vacancy. And while we're spread a little thin at the moment, the enforcement unit is still working like a well-engineered machine. So thank you. We appreciate their commitment and work ethic. Strategic plan, as a result of some of that spread thin, there's been a slight change of plan. We had planned on providing you a report out on the close of our 2018-2022 strat plan. But with our growing pains of late, we've decided that we'll be bringing that to you in a more comprehensive report in the March meeting. But I wanted to leave you with a couple teasers from the 4 main goals of our strategic plan. The first goal was under enforcement, and in that area we were able to assess and update our performance measures with more reasonable timelines. We were able to establish a second probation monitor position. However, that's been kind of sidelined by the global pandemic, and so we'll be revisiting that at a later date, but we have the position authority now. We've developed and launched a virtual expert consultant training and have onboarded over a dozen new expert consultants. Under number 2, which is the licensing goal, we've revised the application process twice during the plan and have streamlined a number of processes, including acknowledgement notices of application progress in the applicant's Breeze accounts. We've implemented performance measures for application timelines, and we've already had to fine-tune those a few times as well. We were able to establish a third position in continuing competency and have begun developing the audit process for recognized approval agencies. For number 3, under communication and education, we were able to establish a position as the communication and education liaison. We did have a goal of providing continuing outreach presentations for all 32 PT and PTA programs, of which we've surpassed and have now provided it to 40 out of 41 PT and PTA programs. Almost all of our publications have been revised and rebranded as One Voice per our communications policy. And we added TikTok. For number 4, organizational effectiveness, these are a few of my favorites. We managed to relocate to a larger space in the middle of a global pandemic and well under budget. We achieved a long overdue goal in establishing an AEO position for the board, which I certainly appreciate. And we've made numerous improvements to Breeze over the last 4 years. We've improved internal communications with new tech, like a completely Microsoft Teams-based phone system. And we've improved our external communications by establishing more consistent and more frequent communications with our external stakeholders, such as the Department of Consumer Affairs, the Division of Investigation, the Attorney General's Office, and the California Physical Therapy Association. And we're in the process of establishing a permanent position for a legislation and regulation liaison. Just a peek, and again, we're looking forward to the opportunities that will be part of our 2023 strategic plan. And that's all I have to report
That's all?
on. Well, for now.
That's a lot. That's good work. Yep, Daniel?
I'm wondering if there's any awareness of any issues with license renewal notification. My license, for example, is due to renew at the end of January. I have not yet received a notification of that upcoming renewal cycle. Usually, my recall is that it's been at least 2 months ahead of time. Because mine is the end of January, typically I would receive it even before Thanksgiving in the past. And I'm just wondering if there's any word about that, if there's any trouble, if there's any conflict, anything going on.
So I just recently found out there may have been an issue with the printer that may be affecting renewals. And so there was a significant delay in things that went out. And so I'll have to look into that a little bit more, but that could be affected. So thank you for bringing that up, and we're working on that.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm aware. I know what the cycle is, and I know that mine is due, but I'm a little concerned about others who may not be as tuned in to their license status and to make sure that it gets taken care of appropriately.
We will certainly look into it and see what's caused the delay and how long of a delay we're talking about. And it may be something that we'll have to kind of, bolster in our communications in an email blast or something like that to licensees. The only protection we have with that is that, that we're mandated to provide that renewal notice 60 days in advance of expiration, and we typically do it within 90, just to give us that kind of cushion. And so hopefully we can still stay within the mandate, even with the printer malfunction or something like that, but we'll look into it and figure it out.
Any other board comment, discussion? I'm curious, was a new PTVC website platform part of the strategic plan or not necessarily?
I think indirectly it most certainly was. And staff like to remind me that the plan's not done yet. And so there's still possibilities that we could, take a couple more boxes off the list of goals on the action plan. Progress has been made on the new website template. And it is something that I think you'll probably see within the next quarter or two. So, based on when the strategic plan was created and following the 4-year mark, I think for some of us, and we were debating this among staff, it depends on if you're talking about calendar year or fiscal year of when we consider the plan closed. So, but it's something that's definitely coming.
Great news. And you will have a more formal report hopefully in March. When will our strategic plan planning start for the next?
So the preliminary stages of the strategic plan for 2023 have already started. So we've coordinated with Solid, and we'll start the surveys the early part, January and February. Those surveys will be completed and compiled by DCA's Solid team and be brought back to us. Staff will convene and come up with recommendations, but you as a group, as a board, will convene with that at the June meeting for a 3-day meeting, and one of those days being the strategic plan itself.
Thank you. Other board comment? Any public comment? Okay, agenda item number 9 would be our Consumer and Professional Associations and Intergovernmental Relations reports. Up first would be FSBPT.
So I don't have anything directly from FSBPT, but I can speak to FSBPT. As you're aware, we hosted their annual education meeting in Orange County in October of this year. We were riding the waves of regulation, and by all account, it was a smashing success. I've gotten nothing but positive feedback from the other jurisdictions, and all of them had high praise for our board's vice president and her role, Ms. McMillian, in welcoming everyone to California as part of our opening statements, kicking the whole conference off. I'd also like to thank Mr. Irvin for participating on a panel that was titled The Value of Public Members, which was also very well received. And also an honorable mention for Dr. Dominguez for his participation on the Education Committee, which kind of makes the whole conference run smoothly. Right? I'd like to thank the rest of you as members for your attendance, and also staff who joined me. Having us all there allowed us to kind of divide and conquer and take in as much of the seminars as possible. And I know that FSBPT was also very appreciative of our attendance and our participation as well. If you didn't get a chance to volunteer for a committee that you might have been interested in, it's not too late. You can still sign up. Since I had termed out of all of my responsibilities with FSBPT, I filled out the volunteer form, and I was recently appointed to the Sexual Misconduct and Boundaries Committee. So if there's a community that you're interested in, let me know, and I can help make the connection with FSBPT. And I would leave it open because a lot of you attended, which again, thank you very much for doing that.
Comments from board members regarding the annual meeting for FSBPT?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. Mr. Kaiser, to your point, there are 4 folks that termed out on that education committee. We finally had an opportunity to physically be there in person. So, so there are 4 vacancies. If any of my colleagues are interested, I really enjoyed my time virtually, mostly, but certainly this last meeting, I think was very educational for me. So I'm just going to echo Mr. Kaiser's solicitation of your participation.
Yeah, so for those of you that have served on committees, I'd love for you to share, because I think, personally myself, going into it, I thought it would be a huge commitment of time and energy, and it was actually quite the contrary. It's enjoyable. FSBPT makes it very easy for you to participate. That's really what they're looking for, is engagement and opinion. And they do all the heavy lifting for you, really. So.
Yeah, I agree. They just want to hear your voice. They need your voice. They need your perspective, your experience, and what you bring to the table. So, and the commitment is not large.
How do you apply?
I can send you a list of what committees, and you can let me know, and I can relay that information. There is a portal, but I noticed that they've closed the survey on the portal after the conference, but they're still looking for volunteers. And I was having a conversation with one of the representatives, and there are committees that have requirements for public members, where on that committee, at least one member should be a public member. It's usually quite topical. So I can give you that list, and you can tell me which ones you'd like, and I'll send that information to them.
It's a great way to learn more about how regulation in our industry works, especially when you're sitting with 5 to 8 other people from different jurisdictions. And I sure did learn a lot when I was on the Foreign Educated Committee, so I would encourage anyone who just wants to participate and learn a little more, but also bring your voice to the table. That's really important.
One of the things that I enjoy watching when we go to FSBPT's Leadership Issues Forum or the education meeting is not only our staff and members learning about other jurisdictions and the way they do things and how drastically different it might be, but the reaction of those jurisdictions to how drastically different it is in California. It's eye-opening at times.
It's eye-opening, and it makes you, it allows you to reflect on what you're doing here on the board and actually say, yes, I think we're doing good work. You know, it makes you feel a little reassured that you're making some good decisions when you see other jurisdictions doing things differently, especially as it pertains to California. I'm curious if Ms. Conley would comment on her experience at the conference. Was your first time at the conference?
Yes, and I thoroughly enjoyed the opportunity to have that exposure to, it was a really interesting experience because it wasn't just, there was just like one type. It wasn't just board members or just staff. It was a mixture of everyone, board members, administrators, staff, FSBT staff. And so it took a minute to kind of get on the same page because everyone has a different perspective and experience in different areas of working with the board, either serving on the board or being staff. So that was really neat. And then we have a lot of differences, but also a lot of similarities. So it was interesting, topics would come up. I'm like, we were, dealing with the same issue. And so we would talk about things and share how it was dealt, how we dealt with it across the states. And so that was really neat. So it was just kind of a think tank for regulation for physical therapy. It was fabulous. So I really enjoyed it. Looking forward to next year, hopefully.
Good. Great. Any public comment? Let's move into our DCA report.
We have Ms. Rose Turner with the Department of Consumer Affairs.
Okay. Can everybody hear me? Okay, I will try to talk slowly. I've got a lot of information to get through. Hello, my name is Rose Turner, and I'm a legislative analyst at the Department of Consumer Affairs in their Division of Legislative Affairs. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to provide the Department of Consumer Affairs update today. We are very excited to announce that the governor recently appointed leaders to DCA's Board and Bureau Relations team. Melissa Geer is serving as DCA's new Deputy Director of Board and Bureau Relations, and she joined the department on October 3rd. On November 14th, Yvonne Durantes began serving as the new Assistant Deputy Director of Board and Bureau Relations. She previously served as the Senior Emergency Services Coordinator at the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services, or Cal-OES. And she served as a Policy Analyst and Task Force Coordinator since 2019. She was an Executive Fellow at Cal-OES from 2018 to 2019. We are very excited to have this new BBR team in place to serve and assist our boards and bureaus. We are also pleased to announce the appointment of Kathleen Nichols as Chief of the Division of Investigation. She was sworn in on December 5th. Ms. Nichols has extensive law enforcement experience with over 26 years of investigating and supervisory experience. Her experience will assist in bringing consistency between the units within the division. The department will begin the process to fill the deputy chief position in the Health Quality Investigation Unit as soon as possible. Please help us welcome Ms. Nichols to her new role. Director Kimberly Kirkmeyer established the department's first Diversity, Equality, and Inclusion Steering Committee to guide the department in its equity strategy, initiatives, and action plans. The DEI committee held its official kickoff meeting on November 9th and will convene its second meeting in January 2023. The committee will focus on 3 core areas: workforce, where it intends to recruit and retain diverse talent; workplace, where it intends to actively educate leadership and staff to increase awareness and create an inclusive culture; and marketplace, where it intends to serve consumers, applicants, and licensees with sensitivity to their diverse backgrounds and perspectives. In accordance with Governor Gavin Newsom's executive order, strategic plans in effect July 2023 and beyond must be developed or updated to more effectively advance equity and drive outcomes that increase opportunity for all. In response, DCA is revising its strategic planning processes to incorporate more inclusive public engagement, data analysis, and embedding diversity, equity, and inclusion into the strategic planning process. Over the coming months, the DEI committee will inform the strategic planning process. By March 2023, DCA will begin implementing the revised processes and working with the boards in updating existing strategic plans or developing new strategic plans. On November 2nd, 2022, DCA released its 2022 through 2027 strategic plan. Additionally, with the unveiling of the new strategic plan, the department has also released a new logo. This new plan and logo represent the next chapter and future of the department. Director Kirkmeyer stated, "Consumer protection continues to guide our mission and priorities. Our department holds itself to a high standard in providing outstanding support services, oversight, and innovative solutions to those who regulate California professionals and vocations so that, through this partnership, all Californians are informed, empowered, and protected." The department's strong commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as our shared dedication to each and every consumer, is built into the framework of the plan. The new logo is very representative of DCA. The shield represents the department's strong and long-standing protection mandate. The state represents all 40 million Californians DCA has pledged and are honored to serve. The star represents consumer protection as DCA's true guiding principle, the department's own North Star. The Office of Public Affairs will be providing more information in the coming weeks on the implementation of the new logo. DCA is excited to take part in the annual Our Promise, California State Employees Giving at Work campaign and celebrate 65 years of caring for California. Board members should have received an email this week from the DCA Our Promise co-chairs, Chief Deputy Director Christine Lally, with information on how to give. The campaign allows Californians to donate to a nonprofit or nonprofits of their choice through December. With your assistance, DCA hopes to continue its tradition of generosity and caring for our communities through this year's campaign. Please assist us in encouraging all members and staff to donate. Please contact Melissa Gear if you have any questions or can assist. As travel resumes again, it is important to remember that all state travel arrangements must be made through DCA's approved travel agency, Cal Travel Store, or Concur. All board members and staff must use the most economical fares possible when traveling by air on official state business. Typically, this will be Southwest Want a Getaway option. However, there may be additional charges if changes are made to the flight. Flight changes to the date and time for personal convenience are not approved or a justified reason, and the traveler will be responsible for any associated charges. If you have any travel questions, please contact Board and Bureau Relations. As 2022 comes to a close, it is a perfect time to make sure that you have completed all your required board member trainings and submitted your certificates of completion to your executive officer and DCA at memberrelations@dca.ca.gov. Board members are required to complete board member orientation training within the first year of appointment or reappointment. Ethics training within 6 months of appointment and repeat every 2 years. Sexual harassment prevention within the first year and every 2 years. And defensive driver training within the first year and every 4 years. These trainings are offered multiple times a year in various formats for your convenience. If you have questions or need additional information about any of these trainings or anything else, please contact Board and Bureau Relations. DCA is partnering with the State Controller's Office to share information with consumers and certain licensees about the Unclaimed Property Program. State law requires banks, insurance companies, corporations, and other entities to report and submit their customers' property to the SCO after a period of inactivity, generally 3 years. Many DCA licensees will benefit from this partnership, as it will educate them about their responsibility to report unclaimed property and assist with compliance. Additionally, the program is a great resource for all consumers to locate their unclaimed property. Thank you again for this opportunity. DCA and the Board and Bureau Relations team look forward to working with you and assisting you.
Thank you, Rose. Any board member comments or questions? I had a few things that kind of perked my ears.
Sure.
One was the new logo. Is that is that like out there for us to see just yet or not quite yet?
I don't believe it is out quite yet. I think last I heard that it was going to be unveiled in January.
Okay. Curious to see that. And then there was a mention of DEI data analysis in the new strategic plan. I don't expect
Yes.
you, or I don't know. Do you know any more about that at all?
I do not,
Yeah.
unfortunately. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just curious, like, what would that entail? Like, would that be of licensees?
Yes, and one of the expectations will be that in the development of each board's individual strategic plan, that also be an element that's looked at in that strategic plan as well.
Interesting. Okay. More to come. And then the last item was, there was a mention of DCA wanting more inclusion of the public and more,
Yes.
interaction with the public. And I'm just looking forward to what that looks like, because that's always been a challenge, so, yeah. Staff comment?
I think we will see some recommendations in the future coming out of DCA because of the new branch under DEI. Designated staff for the sole purpose of doing that research and trying to find, best practices and trying to achieve that goal. Once that comes out, I think that's definitely something that will help us, 6 months from now when we're establishing our own strategic plan.
My curiosity is the focus on DEI for state employees or for the licensing population, or both?
All inclusive, right? So both state employees, both of our licensees, but also consumers as well. So trying to be able to figure out better, more efficient ways to deliver information to underserved communities and underserved stakeholder groups. I think you'll see every aspect of that, every facet.
Thank you. That's it from me. Other questions or comments? Or from staff? Thank you, Rose. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
And agenda item number 9C is the California Physical Therapy Association.
Good afternoon. I'm Stacy Defoe. I'm Executive Director for the California Physical Therapy Association. Nice to see all of you, and I see a couple of new faces, so to meet some of you, welcome, and nice to meet you. I'm just going to do a little quick update of the year. We had a busy year this year, starting off with the Rose Parade float that we had, where we won the Grand Marshal Award. We were very excited about that activity and how we were able to promote physical therapy and our branding campaign, PTs Improve the Way You Move, throughout California, nationally, and to the world. So, and one of the things we did around that, which I'll mention later, is called geofencing. I don't know if any of you are aware, but of what that is. We had to learn it. But basically, we create a perimeter around the location that creates ads on people's electronics that come up during that. And we had a very good response. We calculate that by tracking traffic to our website, to our consumer website. So we had a great response around that. We did that again for the breast cancer pink walk and had good results from that as well. So we'll be continuing that through the year. We did create a task force this year, calling it the Modernization Review Task Force. We have put together a group of experts, PTs, who are experts sort of in their field to take a look at the Practice Act as a whole, make sure that it's current and modern and allows PTs to practice at their current level of education. So that continues. The task force will continue through the next couple of months. They've also been getting feedback from PTs through our annual conference. There was a session where they reviewed it, and through town hall meetings. So that's that work continues, and we'll update you as it goes. Our webinar Wednesdays were created during the pandemic, and they continue to be a great success. We have had booked in 2022 just about every Wednesday through the year, at least three Wednesdays a month for most months, and that continues. We will continue that through 2023 and would like to extend the invitation to the board, executive officer, that we did that, I believe, in 2021 to great success. It was well received, and we'd like to do that again for 2023. Our annual conference in Long Beach, it was our first time back in person in a couple years, and we had more than 600 attendees, which we feel was a success. That's about 60% of our normal attendance, but for the first year back out of the pandemic, getting people back together again, we consider that a success. And we will be back together again in 2023 in Long Beach, October 7th and 8th. We also want to thank the board for attending our conference and hosting a booth, and would like to again extend that invitation for 2023, and we hope you will join us. Membership is going strong. We just hit 10,000 members for the first time since late 2019. They went down a little bit, and then we're continuing gradually rising for the last couple of years, but we have just again reached 10,000, which we're very excited about. Our CPTA board just met December 2nd, where they approved the budget and all the activities going forward for 2023. We have a lot on the agenda, a couple of which I've just mentioned, but we will be continuing our efforts around our public awareness campaign, PTs Improve the Way You Move. Won't be anything as flashy as a float, but we will continue our efforts in that area with social media, advertising, geofencing, participation in events, and things like that. On the advocacy front, we will be focusing efforts on getting to know all the new legislators that have joined this year, have been elected this year. Our lobbyist tells us it's about 30% turnover, so that's a lot of new people to get to know, to educate about physical therapy, and to find out who might be interested in our issues and friendly toward PT. So that's something we will be working on over the next few months. Legislatively, we will likely be pursuing a utilization review piece of legislation for the next year. We're working on language right now. It would likely be very pared down from what was submitted before, and really focused on the number of visits that would be authorized. So something we'll be working on. We'll keep the board posted over the next few months. We'll be, again, developing the language and looking for an author, that sort of thing. Another issue that we may be following up on in the upcoming year is the PT-OT credential, school credential. We know that there is a shortage. We've been hearing that there's a shortage of PTs and OTs working in the schools. They're needed. And one thing that we think might be helpful for those working in the schools is to allow them to get a credential. And something we've been working on over the last few years, and we've received information that it might be better received this year, so we're something that we will likely continue working on with the occupational therapists. Again, our webinar Wednesdays will continue. We are already booked out 3 Wednesdays a month through April. And again, we would like to extend the invitation for maybe Jason to present again sometime this year, and contact Rita if you're interested. And then just wanted to let you all know that tonight we are having a town hall meeting. It's a virtual town hall meeting. We will be talking about providing payment updates on what's going on in California and also nationally. And then we will also be talking about the modernization of the PT Practice Act and getting feedback, presenting and also getting feedback. So if it's open to all, if anybody's interested in attending and you're not already signed up, let me know and I can send you the link. And I just wanted to end by saying really appreciate the communication from the board again this year with board and staff. We've met a few times to review issues. We feel like there's open communication when things come up. And we really felt that during the pandemic in 2020 and 2021 continued this year, and we look forward to continuing that in years to come. Any questions for CPTA?
Thank you for that feedback, that last piece of feedback. That's
Okay.
really good to hear.
Great.
I have a couple of comments or questions. One is, can you please tell us again about geofencing and how you used it?
It's a way to promote. It's a way to promote physical therapy, and how we use it is you set up a perimeter around a location, which will bring ads up on people's phones, and then they can follow those ads to our website to learn more about PT. So it's a way to educate consumers, but it also tells us, gives us some information about the interest of people so that we can kind of monitor that through click-throughs. And so people that actually follow the link and go to our website, we can monitor that as well.
And it was successful?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's so interesting. And usually the CPTA conference alternates Northern
Mhm.
Southern, and this time it's going to be back in Long Beach?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's a matter of availability of locations, especially coming out of the pandemic. So we'll be back in Southern California again. But Long Beach is a great location.
Yeah.
We're excited to be there again. Last time we were there was the highest turnout that we had, so we're hoping for success again.
That's great. Other board member comments or discussion?
Stacy, what was the attendance at the conference in Anaheim this year?
630.
Huh?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, staff comment?
I would just say thank you for the invitation. We would be happy to attend. It was a wonderful experience this last time around at Anaheim. It was kind of a Southern California whirlwind tour for this board. We had a board meeting a little bit earlier that week. But setting up a booth in the vendor area, we got a chance to give the board, a face to the stakeholders. We've met a lot of applicants, licensees, employers,
Yeah.
educators.
I
and
know our
answered-
attendees appreciate you being there.
And
so
answered a lot
we
of
appreciate it.
questions.
Good, I'm glad it was a
Yeah,
success for you.
absolutely.
That's great. Any public comment? Thank you, Stacy.
All right, thank you.
Yes. And just before closing this agenda item, any public comment on FSBPT or DCA as well? And hearing none, it is 2:00, but if board members are okay, we'll just keep going forward. Power through. Okay. So agenda item number 10, legislation report.
All right, I'm going to try and fill in for Brooke again. So I will just read through an update on some of the bills that were chaptered since the last meeting. So since the last meeting, the governor had until September 30th, 2022 to sign or veto those bills that were chaptered, and they will be effective January 1st, 2023. For the upcoming legislative session, the legislature reconvenes on January 4th, 2023, and February 17th is the last day for bills to be introduced. There were a few bills from the last legislative session that were chaptered after the September meeting, and we'll discuss those now. The first bill is AB 1604, the Upward Mobility Act of 2022, Boards in Civil Service, Examinations, Classifications. This bill was approved by the governor and chaptered on September 13th, and it will take effect January 1st. The board was following this bill because it was requiring that there be at least one member from an underrepresented community as defined in the bill. However, that has been struck from the bill, and it's focusing specifically on civil service and examinations and core competencies in that area. So this is no longer impacting the board. The next one is SB 731, and this bill was approved by the governor and chaptered on September 29th, 2022, and will take effect January 1st, 2023. This bill expands felonies that are eligible for automatic record sealing to include convictions for certain felonies that resulted in incarceration, as long as the individual had completed their sentence and has not been convicted of a new felony for 4 years. The effective date, actually, I need to correct that. It's actually going to be July 1st, 2023. Did you have any elaboration on that? Were there any questions on that one? No? Okay. So the next one is SB 1237, Licenses in Military Service. This bill was approved by the governor and chaptered on September 17th, 2022, and will take effect January 1st, 2023. This bill requires the boards within DCA to waive the renewal fee of any licensee or registrant who is called to active duty as a member of the United States Armed Forces or California National Guard if the licensee or registrant is stationed outside of California. The board has already implemented this, and so it's already in effect. The change in this bill is actually just to clarify what active duty means and the duration of the active duty and what that includes. There was an interpretation that it was a temporary service, but this expands that. The next bill is SB 1438, Physical Therapy Board. This is the board's Sunrise bill, and it has extended the Physical Therapy Board until January 1st, 2027.
Yay.
Yeah.
And just a side note, that bill was signed the Friday after our last board meeting, so we missed it by a day.
In addition to extending the Physical Therapy Board, the bill also authorizes physicians and surgeons to conduct an in-person or telehealth patient examination and evaluation in connection with their approval of the physical therapist plan of care for direct access, that provision of direct
Yay.
access. So it can be in-person or telehealth. All right, and the next one is SB 1495. This is the omnibus bill for the Senate BMP committee, and it was approved by the governor and chaptered on September 23rd, 2022. It will take effect January 1st, 2023, and it has various updates for multiple boards and other provisions within the Business and Professions Code from the sunset process. And that's it. Any questions, comments?
For SB 1237, the military service bill,
Mm-hmm.
how many cases do we get in general for any given period of time that fit that?
So, go ahead.
Actually, I'll let you speak to that. Those numbers on the front of your head.
I was gonna say, I don't have them off the top of my head. They are in the application materials as far as the number of military applicants we get. We don't have the data on the military, the members of the military who are requesting the renewal fee waiver. What seems to have happened, most of the requests we get for the renewal requirements waiver is that they request it, but then they have to come back and actually just have a regular renewal because they cannot have their CC waived. Part of the one of the provisions in the renewal waiver is that it waives the fee as well as the continuing competency requirement. But that is seen as a lesser standard of care for that licensee. And the military doesn't want that. They want it to be the same standard of care as a civilian. So they end up having to have their license, because they have a unique license status. It's either military active or military inactive. And that actually needs to reflect current, because that also shows that they have completed their continuing competency requirement.
And that's for those military members who are utilizing their physical therapy license in their service of the military. So they're actually practicing physical therapy in their military service.
So we're offering them something, but the military's saying,
Sometimes they can't utilize it, that's correct.
is there ever a case where they can?
Yeah, so you do have military members who, while they may be licensed physical therapists, that's not their duty or role in the military. And in that case, military inactive doesn't affect anything they do, and they could take advantage of that exemption.
Thank you. Okay. Any other board questions or comments on the legislative report? Any public comment? Thank you, Sarah. Agenda item number 11, rulemaking report.
All right, I will be reporting for Brooke again. So for, hold on, it's the right spot here. So there are currently 3 regulatory packages in process. All 3 are under review at the Office of Administrative Law. So it's exciting, the end of the process. We want to thank our regulatory attorney at DCA, Heather Hogeson. She's in the audience. For all of her help and just all of her hard work throughout the process. She was a vital part of making the success of getting this far. So I'll give an update on each of the packages. The coursework tool, staff submitted the final rulemaking package to DCA on October 19th, and it was approved on the 23rd. It was submitted to agency on October 24th, and approved on November 7th. And then submitted to OAL on November 7th, where it is currently. And so that just kind of gives you an idea of the processing time and how it's improved. I mean, it was pretty quick for each review. Same thing with the performance evaluation tool, all the, reviewed by DCA, agency, and then OAL. Retired license status. That was at the September 22 board meeting. The board reviewed the public comments, received and adopted the responses to the comments to include in the final rulemaking package. The final rulemaking package was submitted to DC on October 7th. It has gone through the process and is now with OAL. So we are just waiting for those final approvals. Any questions?
Thank you. And on behalf of the board, Heather, thank you for your work in pushing this through. This is really good news. Yeah. Comments from staff?
I think the one thing that is probably pertinent to know is that of those 3 packages, one most likely will go into effect January 1. At least I think we're on track for that, and that would be the retired status. And then the other 2 could possibly also have a January 1, but most likely will be an April 1 implementation, which I think still is, we've caught up, and now we can divert our resources and start working on some new packages pertaining to continuing competency and anything else that might come up.
Fantastic. Other board comments? You just mentioned continuing competency, so what's our path forward now?
Well, staff has been working on tweaking the continuing competency regulations for certain things that we've, found to be kind of anomalous, almost, I wouldn't say problematic, but it could be improved upon. And then we're also looking at the audit process and the methods or ways to fund that and fund the staff for continuing competency. So we'll be working with DCA and their budget analysts to kind of determine what's the best way to compensate the program, whether that be fees for application to become a recognized approval agency. And that's, I think, what we're leaning towards. I'd rather generate revenues from a business or an industry that was created as a result of this creation of regulation, and not burden the licensees any further with any kind of fee increases. So we'll look at that. We're going to try to determine what those fees might look like and how they're structured. and what would be sufficient to maintain the CC program, and it could stand up on its own.
Sounds great. So sometime next year, maybe we'll get some sample language in front of us.
Yeah, I would think either the June meeting or the September meeting.
And any identification of other regulations that seem to need our attention?
Not currently, but that's not to say that we won't now, kind of with some more free resources and moving some packages through, that we might not come with recommendations from staff to the board with ideas of proposed language for changes.
Thank you. Further board member comment? Any public comment? Okay, thank you, Sarah. Discussion possible board action on rulemaking calendar?
That's me.
Mhm.
Okay. So now we have the rulemaking calendar for 2023. Government Code Section 11017.6 requires all agencies annually to submit a calendar of anticipated regulatory changes and the time frame in which they expect to submit those changes to OAL. This allows OAL to prepare for anticipated workload in the coming year. Therefore, at each December meeting, the board adopts a proposed rulemaking calendar. The rulemaking calendar sets forth PTPC's rulemaking plan for the year and is published by OAL in the California Regulatory Notice Registrar. Staff has been reviewing all regulations under Division 13.2 of Title 16 of the California Code of Regulations to identify regulations in need of amending or repealing. From this review, staff are proposing the following to be included on the 2023 rulemaking calendar. On Schedule A, which would be any rulemaking that would stem from statutes that were enacted in 2022, there's nothing on there. So there was no current legislation that would required rulemaking. But under Schedule B, which is should be in your materials, on page 59, we have included the pending rulemaking that is happening. Even though it's close to approval, it's still on the calendar because it may carry over into 2023. So it's the coursework tool and the PET, as well as the retired license status. But hopefully those will be completed soon. And then, like you were just discussing continuing competency. And that will be the majority of the work in 2023. If you are comfortable with the rulemaking calendar, there is a motion included in the briefing paper to adopt this calendar to submit to OAL.
Is this the actual report that gets submitted? Or is
It is.
It
and
looks just
it's-
like this?
It looks just like this, and it's the format that they require.
Mhm.
Based on the discussion we just had, and you'll see the way that it's proposed here, what we're essentially telling OAL is potentially in the next year, in 2023, we may submit two new packages, one for changes to the continuing competency regulations themselves, and then the additional package of creating continuing competency fees. And so it's just a way for OAL to establish kind of workload across the board and determine what kind of staffing they'll need with projected volumes received. It doesn't hinder us from having, other packages that we might introduce out of necessity.
Just giving them an idea.
Right.
I move to adopt the 2023 rulemaking calendars required by Government Code 11017.6.
Second.
Motion by myself, Alicia Rabina Amen, and a second by Ms. Katarina Ellaby. Is there further board discussion? Is there any public comment? Roll call vote, please.
Alicia Rabina Amen.
Aye.
Dale Armstrong.
Aye.
Jesus Dominguez.
Aye.
Daniel Drummer.
Aye.
Katarina Ellaby.
Aye.
Jonathan Irvin.
Aye.
Tanya McMillan.
Aye.
7-0, the motion passes.
Thank you. Agenda item number 13 is public comment on items not on the agenda. Is there anyone from the public who would like to come forward and comment on any item that's not on the agenda? And hearing none, that's the end of all of our agenda items for day one of this two-day meeting. And I propose we just go into a short break before going into closed session for the afternoon, and then we will not be coming back into open session except just to adjourn, recess the meeting until tomorrow morning at 9. Okay? 2:15, let's come back at 2:35. Thank you.